Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
And you have no sound because I've been doing this the whole time with my microphone on mute, and I feel like an absolute idiot right now. I am so overtired, and that's what I'm going to blame it on. Yeah, no sound. Ah, there goes my roll call. Oh my God. Sorry about that, guys. Oh, yeah, we got a good show. Olav Phillips is coming up. And give me like a minute and a half here to wake up. Fuck. Oh, well. Oh, well. That's the worst thing that happens today besides my bad hairdo. We'll be all good. We'll be all good. Yes, Jules, I know I'm muted. I was recording Swamp Dweller, so I muted my microphone. So that's why. Damn it, that was dumb. Oh, well. It happens, I guess. Yeah, we're just going to get going here. Super chat is open. And par for the course today. My God, today was like a Monday. Apparently it continues. "30 seconds. I'll be better in 30 seconds, I promise you. Well, maybe. No, we got about a minute here. Or do we have 30? I don't know. I can't even read my clock right now. Thank you, T-Bone. Appreciate you, my friend. "25 seconds. We're going in 5 seconds, Olaf.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Shush. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears to what's that we have in the news. We're together, friends. Oh. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole.
Hello, welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us on in as we get ready for a great show of radio tonight. Thank you for tuning us in on all of our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Caribou Con. Head on over to cariboucon.com. Get VIP tickets right here in the heart of the Caribou, September 18th through 20th. We have an amazing show coming up for you tonight. Olav Phillips is going to be here to talk about the UFO story that's going on. Yes, it's gripping everybody, and we're going to get into it with him momentarily. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will kick things off with another spooky story. And right after that, we are going to go straight to Christian McLeod, going to join us, filling in for Robin Haynes on the Q&A. So let's get right to it, shall we? Let's go. Olav Phillips is a very respected conspiracy researcher, writer, author, and publisher who has seen his work do deep dives into the worlds of secret space programs, exotic aircraft, advanced technology, foreign policy, alien civilizations, and hidden history. Known for his detailed investigative style and decades of research, Olav has become a recognized voice in alternative history and UFO research circles. He is the author of The Secret Space Age, published by Adventure Unlimited Press, and has contributed numerous articles to Paranoia Magazine, Steamshovel Press, and Mysteries Magazine. He is absolutely a great friend of this show as well. Let's bring him on here, the platted wonder himself, Olav Phillips. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay, Dave. How are you?
Greetings and salutations.
Greetings and salutations, my friend.
It's good to have you here, my man, because when there is stuff going on in the UFO world, you're one of my first phone calls that I make because it is always intriguing to get your perspective of everything. You are somebody who's been studying this a long time, way longer than me, and I've only been doing it 11 years. I think you're like into like your 60th or 70th year of research, whatever it might
60 or
be.
70. How old do you think I am?
Well, my goodness,
A
I
long
think I'm
time.
older than you, but you know,
Yeah, I think you are.
man, I was on a roll there.
Oh, sorry.
Let's get right to it. I mean, this love of
Okay.
this subject that you have, how did it come about for people who may be hearing you for the first time?
Well, it all started innocently enough. It was the 80s. I was probably 7 or 8 years old, 7, I think. And I was laying in bed reading a Choose Your Own Adventure, to date myself. And there was a light that appeared in front of my second floor window, and it just kind of hung there. And I did what every kid does. I hid under the covers. I tried to ignore it. And eventually, it's just freaking me out. And so, I ran across the hall to my parents' room. I got my dad, and my dad comes in, and it's gone. And I'm like, what the hell? So I went to school the next day. I asked the teacher if I could go to the library. And back then we had libraries, and they were, the librarian in an elementary school is kind of like a guide, right? And so I went to her, I told her the story, and she said, okay, well, here's the Dewey Decimal Code. And so I went and looked up the Dewey Decimal Code. And it's like airplanes and that kind of thing. And I was like, I walked back, so my everybody in my family was in the Air Force. I grew up on Air Force bases. I love airplanes. That's not what this was. And she goes, oh, you want those books? And I'm like, yeah, whatever those books are, tell me where that is. And I can even take, if I went in the library, I could literally take you to where they were. They were on the bottom shelf of some bookshelf. And I got Jacques Vallée, Messengers of Deception, J. Allen Hynek, and I got Brad Steiger. And I took it home and I read it and trying to figure out what the hell I saw. And so Steiger was the most approachable. Valley was too complex for a 7-year-old, especially Messengers of Deception. And Hynek is just too dense. He's a scientist, astronomer. And so I read Mysteries from Beyond Time and Space over and over, and it didn't give me an answer. So I started that day trying to figure out what I saw. And I still haven't figured it out. 40 some odd years later, I still don't know what I saw.
About 60 years later, you're still here. You're
I'm
still here. Looking for them. The UFO subject lately, Olaf, has really captivated the world, and it has captivated more people than just in the UFO realm, that we're so used to being closeted by the rest of the world, being ignored. But it's really a story that can't be ignored any longer, is it?
No, I mean, it's captivated people. I mean, I saw a very interesting interview with Leon Panetta, and kind of the comments he made kind of sums it up, that the guy on CNN goes through this whole thing about Iran and all that. And at the end he goes, hey, so you were the head of the CIA? And he's like, yeah. And he says, so, where are the aliens buried, basically? And Panetta's like, to my knowledge, there are no aliens. There's no wreckage. There's none of this, which I disagree with, by the way. But he said, a lot of these things that you're seeing are human, and we know what they are. And he's like, he said that, it kind of concerns me as a person that I see these videos and these advanced capabilities, and, that our adversaries, at least some of them, are owned by our adversaries. And the guy said, hey, I thought that I was going to ask you a dumb question and get a kind of goofy answer before the end of the interview, but you just scared the crap out of me. And Panetta answered, yeah, well, it scared the crap out of me too. But I mean, if you're seeing specials on UFOs on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, if you're seeing, interviews carried out by, heavy duty anchors of, political figures, asking them for their opinions about this, it's utterly mainstream.
Do you like the way the media is covering this story right now?
I do, for the most part, because, it's not the Laugh Olympics. Again, dating myself. It's not the Laugh Olympics, it's they're finally starting to ask good questions. There aren't a lot of answers, but at least they're asking better questions. I remember when Roswell revealed or whatever, Roswell case closed, they had that whole thing with where they had the alien guy dressed up as an alien come out. It's like you're not seeing that anymore. You see a well-paid CNN anchor dressed to the nines asking Leon Panetta, former head of the CIA, what are UFOs really? I think that that's better. Whether we like the answer or not, whether it works with our worldview or not, I think the fact that they're taking it more seriously, you know, it definitely, I prefer that to everybody who's ever seen a UFO, whatever, because the UFO or UAP just implies you don't know what it is. I mean, you don't know if it's alien or human or multidimensional, or you don't know. But I think that we used to be portrayed as nuts, and not anymore. I mean, Jesus, Jimmy Carter, he saw one. Ronald Reagan saw one. you know, it's like it's finally being accepted as, we do see weird things in the sky, and we don't always know what they are. It doesn't mean they're aliens, but it doesn't mean they're not. But at least we're taking a real look at it, and not everybody's laughing anymore. So I definitely prefer that.
Okay, so for everything that we see in the sky, you work for a defense contractor. We're going to keep that quiet. Nobody knows
Okay.
that. Nobody knows that. Okay, that's
No,
just
apparently not.
okay. But you work for a defense contractor. You
Worked for
also
a few. I worked for a few.
okay. You also have very high level sources that know what's in the sky, what is ours, and what is not. When we look up at the sky at night and we see things moving, or we see things that just look a little bit anomalous, how
Mhm.
much of that is ours and how much is theirs?
I think Valley and Hynek really nailed it on this. And Valley and Hynek, I think that if I recall correctly, they believe that 20% of it was truly anomalous, that 70, 80% of it could be explained, different angles of aircraft or, natural phenomenon, no matter how weird it is. But there's a good 20, around 20%, maybe more, maybe less, that's truly bizarre. And I think that's still true.
Okay.
Even with the advent of drones and everything else, I still think it's about 20%.
Does that include outside of the United States?
Yeah, I think
Because
it's yeah, I think
but
so.
let me finish here for a second because I'm almost power
Sure.
thinking here. Okay.
Okay.
I'm very close to power thinking.
Okay.
Because I'll give you an example. Where I live in Canada, I live in a northern part of the country. I'm about halfway up the province of British Columbia.
Mhm.
And we do not get a lot of air traffic here. Like you may see 3 or 4 airliners flying by. Usually, this is where they start their climb over the North Pole or coming back from over the North Pole from Europe to make their
Sure.
loop over the planet. Okay. The odd time you see something flying towards Alaska, example, last year I actually got to see a B-1 bomber flying over at altitude, and I could only tell that it was a B-1A by the sound and B by the swept wings, and it
Right.
was really cool. I knew that was obviously heading towards, probably Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska, and it was
Right.
around this time of year as well when it happened. So,
Mhm.
we rarely get air traffic, compared to, say, Vancouver or Calgary or Edmonton or Toronto or Winnipeg or anywhere of
Sure.
a Canadian city. So
Right.
if I look at my area, when I see things moving in the sky, yes, I know the majority of them are satellites. Okay.
Mhm.
But how do I really know what's ours or theirs? Is it still that 20%, you think?
You know, that's a generic statement. I think that in certain places it's probably higher, right? I remember I went to ECETI, and I saw some truly bizarre stuff there. I mean, I'd use the SH word if you didn't have terrestrial radio, but I saw some truly, truly bizarre stuff that I still cannot rationalize. But what I did see was a constant flow And I used a map and figured out that they were coming out of Area 51, but I saw a tremendous number of aircraft that I think were human, but they had bizarre characteristics. And there weren't a lot of planes in the sky. It was at night, you know, but I think, yeah, I think in certain places, you know, like where you live, it's probably higher because from the point of view that a UFO is simply unidentified or a UAP is unidentified and it flies, right? We don't know necessarily who's piloting it. But yeah, I mean, from an experimental aircraft point of view, I'm going to want to go fly it. What's that base? The Canadian test base, was it like Moose Jaw, I think,
No,
or
that's
something like
Cold Lake. Cold
a
Lake.
Cold Lake, Cold Lake. I'm thinking of something else. But yeah, Cold Lake. Like if I'm going to fly a Canadian test aircraft out of Cold Lake, I'm going to go fly it up north. I'm going to go fly it toward the Yukon. I'm going to go fly it in the northern part of British Columbia because there's nobody there, right? And it's less likely to be seen. I saw an aurora twice, and both times that I saw them, I was out in the middle of the desert in Nevada, right? Because they're going to go fly that stuff where there are no people. Well, I happened to be there, so I saw it, right? I don't know that it's that the act like the alien point of view is necessarily going to be higher where you live because the question that requires you to figure out if it's an alien vehicle, you have to try to figure out what's the point of what they're doing, right? If they don't want to be seen, absolutely. But if they do want to be seen, or they have some other agenda, they're monitoring something, where you live is a terrible place to go because there's nobody there, right? So, I'd say that the percentage is probably higher because you get such little air traffic, right? And you might see a UFO that's like transiting like an airplane would from point A to point B, right? Because these are physical objects. I mean, they have to fly. If they're going to go if they're going to go over the pole, right, they're going to fly over where you are. And so it makes sense that you see them, or they want to do something squirrely and they only want, the 15 people that live in your town to see it. And by the way, I live up in the mountains in the Sierras. The entire population of the county is less than 17,000. I think it decreased. I think it's like 15,000. We have one town, right? We have a Walmart in the entire county. It's very remote. Um, I mean, I have to drive an hour to go to Costco, but we see a lot of UFOs here, right? So maybe it's they're trying to test something, whether it's alien or human, they're trying to test something that, they want a limited number of people to see their reactions or something else. But you have to determine if it's going to be where you are, which is even more remote. If it's going to be there, you have to figure out why. And you're dealing, when I did linguistic anthropology, my professor Yangoyan, the first thing he taught us was, you can't apply your Western thinking or your American thinking or Canadian thinking to someone else because their thinking is different. So if I'm thinking a certain way and I want to look at somebody who's from pick a place, France, right? Their world experience is different. So they're going to see the world in a different way. So they're going to use different logic. So it's very hard to figure out. But I would say that, yeah, it's probably higher just due to the lack of traffic, air traffic.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, the fact though, I was talking to Walter M. Sterling last night on WABC in New York, and he was highly disappointed with what he felt was a lack of coverage of what should be a major story all around the world. Like every newscast, every newspaper, every radio station should be leading with this story. Does the
But what's
public
the story?
even care? Do you think the
Oh,
public
I think. Oh no, I think they absolutely do. But what's the story? That's the problem, right? Is that within the UAP community, as we call it now, right? It's like, oh my God, the Pentagon released all these files and whatever. And it's like, yeah, but the vast majority of that crap was released under Project Blue Book. I mean, this stuff that they're releasing from the 60s and the 70s, this is crap that we already know. I mean, there's not a lot. There is some new UAP stuff, but at least the videos I saw, I'm I'm 90% certain are human. So it's like if I'm, headline news, right? You're competing with us bombing Iran and having a world energy crisis because the Strait of Hormuz and 20% of our oil is vanished and 50% of our fertilizer. You're competing with that, and there's not anything earth shattering. It's not like they said, yes, we have bodies. If they said, yes, we have wreckage and bodies, it will be on every newscast everywhere for the next 6 months. But it's like they released a bunch of files. The files is a lot of it is stuff that everybody already knew. It's kind of a big nothing burger. I mean, there's stuff in there that's cool. I saw some drone videos that they released. I think they're drones, but that are newer, but a lot of it is just rehashes of stuff that we already know about. So I don't think, you're competing with Iran, you're competing with economic instability. I think it loses the shock and awe effect of it. Because people, George Stephanopoulos once said that it's the economy, stupid, and it's true. The economy, like it's the highest, um, what is it? Inflation rate since 2023, right? And it keeps going up. Energy keeps going up. Here where I live, we're paying $6 a gallon, right? Diesel's almost 8. And I think a lot of people are just bogged down by the economics of the world. So I think it just is not. There's nothing earth shattering. So it's like, I'm not going to cover it.
It's not earth shattering to you and I. Okay,
Right.
because we know that this has been out there for a while. Many of these portions, like my favorite is the NASA part. I
Yeah.
loved how they chastised NASA coming out of this. I do. I think it was
Yeah.
so fitting and so well deserved because of the
Sure.
amount of time it has taken. Olaf, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Right.
But
There's some cool stuff in the NASA. Some of the images from the moon are actually really cool. Really
absolutely,
interesting. Yeah.
absolutely they are. My big thing about it though is okay, yes, we didn't get Roswell. Yes, we did not get, alien bodies, crash retrievals, Kecksburg, Shag Harbor, whatever it may be. We didn't get any of it. We didn't
Right.
get the president coming out in front of a podium in front of the White House saying, "My fellow Americans, we are not alone." We didn't get any of that. We knew we weren't going to get any of that. But I
Well, I
think it
don't
was
know. Some
character of
people
first drop.
some people I think they thought that they were gonna get that, but you'll never get that. You know how I feel about disclosure.
No, I do understand. And that's why I think we're not in a disclosure movement. We are in a confirmation movement of the phenomena that it is out there. And it could be for a couple of reasons. One of those may be, Olive, and I want your opinion on this, as we got about 90 seconds to go. It could be because they're not worried about the UFO public who is educated and engaged in this subject. It's about warming people up who may not be familiar with this, the religious communities, the financial communities, all of the communities that put together this planet.
Mhm.
Your thoughts?
Actually, I think it's much more mundane and worse than that. When I took philosophy, my professor had this whole thing where, I grew up most of my life in the Bay Area, and there's the 49ers, right? And he said, there's the allegory of the cave, and he said that, 90% of the population is content with the six pack and the 49ers. Like they don't travel, they go to Disney World and think they've been to Japan or France or Mexico or wherever. They don't leave the state, they don't leave. I mean, it's true in Europe as well. I worked with people that pretty much never left what we would call a state, like Warwickshire. They never left Warwickshire really. They went to London or they went to Birmingham or wherever, but well, they just stayed within their vicinity. So I think a lot of people, they're not even curious about it. They're so bogged down with life that they're not even that curious.
Hold that thought, Olaf, because we are going to go to break here at
Sure.
the bottom of the hour. Olav Phillips is here. We're talking about the UFO files. We're going to get into NASA. We're going to get into what worked with these files, what was missing, and where we go from here. It is a big night on Spaced Out Radio as we continue the UFO talk. You want to hear it? I want to deliver it. So we're going to make it happen in the next half hour again. All right, buddy, we're clear.
All right. No, it's true though. People, they just a lot of people, I don't think they don't look up. Even UFO people, like, they don't look up. They don't bother to look at the sky. I get out there with my night vision goggles. Me and the wife, we sit out there. Okay, where is it? But they don't. I think most people don't bother. They won't know until it lands on the White House lawn. Yeah, it's got to be like the day the Earth stood still, and then they'll be like, "Oh, there's aliens."
Yeah, I think
it's sad though. It's definitely sad.
But I mean, you know what? People are so used to getting their news off the source of their fingertips now.
Yeah, it's true.
There isn't a lot of people doing research, man.
No, but I will say that AI, at least now, with Opus 4, 6, and above, it's in tools like Perplexity, it's made it a lot easier to correlate and to figure things out.
That is true.
I mean, it's a powerful thing when you can say, okay, I want to generate a panel of experts. I want a physicist, I want an astronomer, I want a geologist, I want a conspiracy guy, I want a UFO guy, I want a propulsion expert, and you can put them all in a virtual room and tell them to argue.
It is kind of cool.
It is. It's scary. I'll just say that what I will tell you is that it's scary what you can do with an AI. It is very, very scary.
I don't even want to think about it.
Probably not.
I really do not want to think about it.
My friend, he just asked me to see if I could pull a high resolution image of his house and then measure his pool.
Oh man.
He wanted the dimensions of his pool from orbit using cheap satellite photos.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of freaky because for a few $100, like, you can set up a system basically to watch your house, and I can, some of them, they do one pass a day, some do more. But if you get something that's doing multiple passes, like, I can tell when you leave your house.
Oh, great.
That's public domain. I mean, that's anybody can do it if they know what they're doing.
Nothing freaky about that, Olaf.
No, not at all.
My goodness.
But I mean, that's what the government does. They just use a much more sophisticated system.
Yeah, they're definitely not sending black SUVs that sit in front of your house anymore.
No, they don't need to do that. Forget the movie. It's a Leonardo DiCaprio one where he's like a CIA agent, and there's a part of it where they're sitting in like a command center, and they've got this huge screen, and they're watching a group of Americans, like, attack some kind of a base, and you can see them in kind of thermal and kind of semi night vision, and you're watching them move through the base and shoot people. And when they shoot people, you can see like the spray of the blood, like, thermally, right?
Right.
And then you can see the bodies go cold as they drop and they die. And I had a guy tell me, a guy I trust very much, he told me, he's like, that's exactly what it's like. He's like, whether you're on the ground or you're back in the bunker, watching it, when you're moving through it, actually doing it, that they're looking right through the roof and they can see you thermally, because they're telling you there's a guy, 10 feet away from you on the right, Or, if you're sitting in the command center, it's like you're watching this battle happen in real time from orbit. He said it's kind of stunning.
We got about 45 seconds.
Sure. I will say though that I bring a unique perspective to the UAP thing because I actually know about drones. Most of these guys, they talk out of their asses. I'll use my Skinwalker Ranch example. If you bring it up.
All right. Big thank you to Claudette and T-Bone for the super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show. T-Bone, thank you for gifting a membership as well. And I really appreciate that. So let us go. We're getting back here in 10 seconds. Well, more like 7. No, it's more like 4.
Maybe 2. No.
Here we go. We are into the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for joining us as we're talking UFOs, the files, disclosure with researcher and author Olav Phillips. But first, we want to say to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go, Olav Phillips. It's so good to have you back on the show. Appreciate you talking some UFOs with us.
It's wonderful to be on the show. You know how much I love Spaced Out Radio. And to all your listeners, you need to support Dave. Super Chats, Patreon. You need to support this guy. He's got a great show.
I paid him to say that.
I don't even have a T-shirt.
I'll get you one now.
No,
it was beautiful. Brought a tear to my eye there, my friend.
No, I'll buy one. It helps support the show. I'll buy my own. All right. What can I tell you, Dave?
All right. In the UFO subject, we see how this story has really changed politically, where we have politicians who are battling politicians on whether or not this file and the remainder of files should be released. Anna Paulina Luna coming out yesterday and saying that, they are getting some disruption from some of the intelligence agencies about the releases of these files and more files that are allegedly going to be coming. What do you think's going on behind the scenes politically with this?
Well, I think you got a couple things going on, right? I think the biggest problem that you face with releasing this kind of stuff is that inevitably in some of those files there are exotic aircraft, right? And within the files there's probably hints of means, methods, and capabilities that we use to track these things, or we use to build these things, or we use to use these things, and they don't want to release it. And there's probably some pushback that there might be something that's that might be kind of important, right? But I think that given their congressman pushing back, the IC people, intelligence community people, I would say it's probably about means, methods, and technologies, right? That they're worried about our adversaries figuring out how we do what we do and what the capabilities of it are, for like newer stuff. But, there's probably some pushback that there's things in there that they can't explain and that they don't want to go that route. Because, what's the worst thing that happens? It says, well, we have this thing that flies around in the sky. We don't know what the hell it is. We can't do anything about it. That doesn't breed confidence in the population.
Okay. With that being said, why hide the files? Why hide them? And let me explain this for a little bit here. Okay. I understand, and this is where I draw a big line in between UFO and UAP. UAP being man-made objects.
Right.
I can understand them wanting to hide because I believe a lot of those videos that have already been released are American technology.
Right.
I
Me
do.
too. I'm
And
certain of it.
and that's why we get dots at a 1950s level television camera view, probably with rabbit ears. I think that's why we get the footage that we do. Because if you look at them bombing Iran or Syria back in the day or Afghanistan, those videos are pretty damn clear. But when it comes to UFOs, all of a sudden we're filming on a 1950s camera inside of
Right.
Ed Sullivan's studio. Right?
Yeah.
So I guess I look at it like, what is the big secret? Are we worried about uncovering all of UFO videos of real UFOs, or are we trying to hide the UAP of our own technology?
Personally, I think we're trying to hide the UAPs of our own and our adversaries' technologies. I mean, we already have all the Blue Book files. Look, I have a website that has every Blue Book file that was ever released. It's like there's nothing there. There's a lot there. That's not what I mean, but there's nothing that's going to expose anything. The truth is that if there is wreckage, it's, as I said before, it's parked in a special access program at Lockheed. You can't FOIA it. The people that work on it don't even completely know what they're working on, right? The real nasty stuff that the disclosure people really want, they'll never get. So I'm pretty convinced that it's either programs that are active that have vehicles that are very interesting, and that would be your UAPs, right? Or, it's they're releasing old stuff that's not. Some of it, like some of the photography from the moon, right? There are some questions about that, and if you believe as I do that they have stuff out in the solar system doing things, that very well could be photos of some of that stuff and they don't want to release it. But I don't think they're not releasing alien stuff. I think they're pushing back on not releasing human stuff. I don't think we'll ever see the alien stuff.
What's
Will
the
never
harm in
happen.
in releasing the alien stuff, as you put it?
Well, I mean, that goes back to Brookings, right? The Brookings study. I mean, even Margaret Mead, eminent anthropologist, was a part of that. And the result of the Brookings study was that, there would be at some level a severe societal disruption. That people would be shocked and horrified or confused, and I think if there is real alien stuff, that they don't want to cause a problem. I think the other problem is that if there's alien stuff and you believe in the Men in Black and all those other things, there's a lot of federal laws that were broken, and they have to be accountable for that.
What would be those federal laws broken?
Well, I mean, they intimidated people potentially. They potentially kidnapped people. They potentially killed people. They lied to the Congress. They lied to the Senate. They lied to the president. They lied to the people. I mean, these are all felonies. It's not. I mean, you just look at what they did to Paul Benowitz, right? That uh, they drove him nuts. They drove him crazy, and all they were trying to do was cover up some radio transmissions, right? And they literally drove him bonkers until he killed himself. That's a felony. It doesn't matter if it was done by what's his name, while he was in the OSI. If you're in the
Rick
OSI,
Doty?
Rick Doty, if you're in the OSI and you break the law, you still go to Leavenworth. It's not, the OSI does not have carte blanche to break the law. They're federal agents. They're not allowed. He went a little rogue on that one. He probably, I think he got away pretty light-handed, but I think it's about breaking laws and misappropriating funds and, lying to the oversight. I think that's probably at a minimum of why they covered up, but there's also Brookings.
So let's get back to it then. When we look at as you say, you believe a lot of these videos are American technology. Were you surprised, like I was, that with a lot of the videos that were posted, they were not from the United States? They were United States videos, but They were filmed in Southern Europe. They were filmed in Africa. They were filmed mostly in the Middle East, in countries like Syria, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq. Did that kind of surprise you?
No, because that's where you're going to use these kinds of devices, right? That, if you're, these are combat zones, some of them, and in other cases it's intelligence platforms, right? Just because we're in NATO doesn't mean we don't spy on the French and the Germans and the Italians and the English, all the Five Eyes people. We spy on them, they spy on us, we spy on everybody. And these other places are unstable. In Africa there's a lot of instability, so you're going to run surveillance drones, right? In especially in war zones, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan. You're going to run drones for surveillance. You're going to run drones that blow things up, and that are part of what's called a kill chain. Yeah, I mean, these are places where I would expect to see them.
Why war
Absolutely.
zones?
Well, because the drones, well, drones is kind of a misnomer. So there's different kinds of drones, right? There's ones that are autonomous. There's ones that are flown by people, and a lot of times they fly. You can see it when the Ukraine started, that they were flying, Global Hawks, which is a surveillance drone. They go up around 40,000 feet and they take photos and then video. And they're flying them along, just outside the war zone with the cameras turned to the left into the Ukraine and Crimea, because they're trying to see what's going on, right? You have drones that you fly for surveillance, right? You're going to run those in a war zone because you don't want to have a human pilot. I mean, the days of flying U-2s, over to try to get pictures of Soviet missiles, those days have come and gone. You do it with a satellite or you do it with a drone. So I would expect drone platforms of various kinds to be operating in places where we want to gather, like electronic intelligence, signals intelligence, photographic intelligence. I mean, that's what these things do. They fly around, they listen to radio traffic and relay it. They take videos, they relay it, they take photos. It's these are the places where you need intelligence, and that's what they do. They provide intelligence.
And I guess as the public, we are very naive to the fact that even in a war zone, the CIA isn't going to tell the U.S. Army what they're flying, or the Air Force isn't going to tell the Navy what kind of toys they have that they're flying that the Navy may not know about.
Yeah, they're very disconnected. They're very disconnected in that way. That's why they had the national intelligence person, right? It's because they're trying to unify all that intelligence together, because in the past it's been completely disparate. But yeah, I mean, you could have a situation like the whole thing with the aircraft carrier and the Tic Tac, where somebody flies a drone out there and they don't tell the Navy that they're doing it, or they tell people in the Navy, but that doesn't get relayed to the crew of the aircraft carrier or its other ships, because they want to see what happens. They want to see how the people react to it, right? They want to see, you know, what they do and what they say, and they want to see information leakage, right? Because I'm on the deck of an aircraft carrier, I see a Tic Tac fly by, I say, what the hell is that? I go call my wife and say, hey, I saw this crazy Tic Tac looking thing. They can track how the information disperses, and they can get, it's called leakage, and they can see how it, also in some cases, like with the U2 or with the SR-71 and the A-12, they wanted you to think it was a UFO, because they actually seeded that into different UFO groups, because they didn't want you to know that they had a surveillance aircraft that could do Mach 3 plus, right? It's better for them if you think it's a UFO than an aircraft that flies at the edge of space at Mach 5, and can take high resolution photos. So, there's a lot of reasons, but I think a lot of it is, yeah, they don't necessarily, the CIA is not going to clear it with the Army. They're just going to put in their field guys, paramilitary guys, and they're going to go run a bunch of drones, blow shit up, and then leave. They're not
So
going
where
to talk about it.
where does an alphabet agency like the CIA or the NSA or the Department of Energy, where do they hide their toys? if it's not on military bases for others to see.
Well, they have their own bases, right? That's what a black site is. That they have bases all over the world that are strictly theirs, that they run whatever they want out of, usually in third world countries. I mean, Mossad, well, the Israelis in general, the IDF had had a military base inside of Iran for 10 years that nobody knew about. And it was mostly Mossad, right? And they were doing intelligence gathering inside of Iran, but they had a black site inside of Iran for over 10 years that the Iranians didn't know about at all. I mean, Mossad's actually a really good case, Mossad and Shin Bet, because they do long-term deep cover stuff. I mean, Mossad built a pager factory in Poland to build pagers so that they could put explosives in it and sell it to Hezbollah and Hamas. And then one day they decided, okay, today's the day. And so then they detonated them and blew up a bunch of their leadership, right? And then they waited until the Hamas, first responders show up, right? And then they blew up their radios because they built a radio factory. I mean, that's long-term thinking, you know. But no,
No,
they store them. They store them in black sites in the third world in places that you don't look. I mean, they're out there. You can find them. There's a guy named Trevor Paglen who made a kind of cottage industry of trying to find these places and track them. If you read Trevor Paglen's books like The Terror Taxi and others, he talks about, like, in Afghanistan, they had a salt mine, and the salt mine was a black site, and they used to take, jihadis and people like that into there, and they would interrogate them, and they would gather intelligence, and they operated out of what had been a salt mine in
crazy to
Afghanistan.
think. Crazy to think.
Yeah. You could have a CIA, or I mean NSA and NRO, NGA, those guys are different, but you could have a CIA safe house next door to you and never know. You would never know.
What do you think about NASA being called to the carpet?
I think it's good because they're a civilian space agency that does a lot of covert missions, but they're a civilian space agency. The taxpayer pays for their experiments and their cameras and their film and their people and everything else. And their whole lease in life is that they're supposed to do scientific exploration. So I don't think it's cool that they hit a bunch of stuff. Whatever it is, good or bad, unless it's national security related, they should release it. And I find no reason that the stuff that they didn't release from the moon is national security.
I think one of the biggest disappointments that people may have is for years they've heard NASA say nothing.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, if they take a look in these files, some of their heroes are actually talking about UFOs, namely Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, the first and second man to walk on the moon.
Oh, yeah. A lot.
And
They talked about a
how
lot.
many times over the years did we hear Buzz Aldrin really quash that question? Did you see anything on the moon? Did you see any UFOs? And he'd almost get
Because he was
upset about it.
but he was ordered to, he was following orders. But in his later years, there's a C-SPAN interview that I always bring up, and he's like, he's talking about sending people, not robots, into space, and he's like, there's a monolith on Phobos, on one of Mars's moons. We need to go figure out what that is. It's a monolith. He's talking about all this other crazy stuff out in space that we've seen, and we need to investigate to see what it is, right? And then the guy who was running the interview was like, "Oh, that's great, Buzz. Let's take a phone call." And some dude called up and wanted to talk about an airlock that Buzz Aldrin had designed. But he did come out later and say there's a lot of anomalous stuff in the solar system that we need to take a look at it and we need to understand. But yeah, I think part of it was conditioning, and I think part of it was his national security oath, right? The part that's conditioning is in that same interview, the guy asked him, what it was like to be on the moon. And he he said, it's an interesting question. He's like, it's not really something you can describe. And he said that when he came back from the moon, he went to a party because he was a bit of a party animal. And he went to a party, and this guy asked him, "Hey, what was it like to be on the moon?" And he said that his mind went blank. He got chills, ran to the bathroom, and started throwing up. That's a conditioned response. That's a you have to leave, don't talk about this response that was conditioned into him somehow. Right. But the other stuff, there's also, national security oaths. They told him and Armstrong, and I forget the other guy who was in the capsule orbiting, but they told them don't talk about it. And they were patriotic, good Americans, and they said, okay, I'm not going to talk about it. I mean, Armstrong said very little. Like when he came back from the moon, he pretty much went radio silent. He did the ticker tape parade, and then he got a job as a teacher and pretty much vanished. Like he didn't do personal appearances or interviews. He just walked away.
Yeah, he sure could have capitalized financially on his his history there, but he just really chose to disappear. And a lot of people do believe it's because they saw something.
Yeah, I mean, I firmly believe we landed on the moon, but that doesn't mean that they didn't see things while they were there. Because when you watch the videos of them driving around in the rovers, it's really cool. Like it's really fun to watch them, driving around in a rover, going over things and bouncing around and whatever. But if you look at the background, right, it's like Looney Tunes. You see the same in some of the films, you see the same like dunes over and over and over and over again, like they were superimposed. So I do think we went, but I think that we've never been completely honest about what we saw, and certainly not in this release. But there are things there. I've always been a big fan of Richard Hoagland. Like I'm really fascinated by the stuff he does. And he has this whole thing about mega structures on the moon, and it's like some of the photos that they released show things that look like what he's talking about, like the shard and these other, arcologies and other things that he believes are on the moon. Some of those photos actually show that stuff better than what he's been looking at for 30 years.
That is
So I
true.
mean, yeah, there's stuff in there, but it's the stuff that's in there. It's arcane. It's really arcane, like little things that you would actually have to know what you're looking at. For example, there's the whole like Apollo 20 thing, right? And I put it in the book, but if you look at Apollo 20 and you look at the film of them flying over this huge cigar-shaped UFO with what looks like Mayan markings on it that's all pitted and screwed up and crashed and whatever, you can find that photo at NASA. Like that photo is real. There's no video of it, that I've ever seen that they released. But if you know where to look and you can figure out based on where the Luna lander was from the Soviets, if you look in that area, you'll find that thing. It is there, and you can download it from NASA. So there is an awful lot of stuff up there.
What do you think of the rumor? And this was brought up because of the Apollo 17 files and Gene Cernan seeing things up on the moon, where allegedly it's believed that Cernan brought a message back from the moon saying, you're not to come back here anymore. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's possible. By the way, Hoagland's still alive. It's, I mean, it's possible, but it's conjecture, right? There's no way to validate it, really. I mean, that's like the whole thing, which Edwards Air Force Base UFO landing that they recreated for Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? You can't you can't validate it. It's a story. I mean, the best one is probably the Jackie Gleason thing, where Nixon took him out to look at a body and it screwed him up. His wife, Jackie Gleason's wife, says that that is real. That Nixon came by himself in a black car, picked him up, and took him to Homestead. And the dates align. Nixon was at Homestead at that time, and Jackie Gleason's wife is like he came back a shattered man. Like whatever he saw severely haunted him for the rest of his life. So there's correlation to that. But like the Ciernan thing, it's like, who knows? I mean, you can't, there's no evidence. So you just have to take it at face value that, okay, who's it's like Project Bluebeam, right? If you really look into Project Bluebeam, one
Yeah.
person talked about Project Bluebeam. Nobody else ever talked about it. No records of anything anywhere. One guy. Okay, so you have one.
Olaf, I'm
source.
going to get you to hold on right there.
Sure.
We're going to go to break. 1 hour down, 1 hour to go. Olav Phillips, author, researcher, publisher. Guy does it all and still finds time to wear plaid.
Carhartt plaid.
This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
All right, Olaf, we have 5.5 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Here we go.
Our merch is Bigfoot approved. We have t-shirts, we have mugs, we have hoodies, we have socks, we have hats, we have stickers, and so much more. Whatever you're looking for, we have you covered. Why just be a fan of the paranormal when you can buy Spaced Out Radio merch and look the part? Our merch ain't ugly, folks. Check out the Spaced Out Radio store. Find the link in the description below.
Lurking within the forested region of the 108-mile ranch, where the worlds of the normal and paranormal collide. CaribouCon is waiting for you, bringing together a panel of renowned experts in the paranormal, cryptid research, and UFO phenomena fields. Get ready for a spine-tingling weekend in the heart of British Columbia. Enjoy fascinating discussions, presentations, tours of local haunted areas, and skywatching. Learn from investigators, authors, and enthusiasts who explore everything from ghost hunting techniques to sightings of Sasquatch and beyond. Whether you're a seasoned paranormal researcher or just love a good spooky story, this is your chance to connect with fellow enthusiasts in one of BC's most mysterious areas. Tickets are on sale now. Grab yours before they're gone. Visit cariboucon.com for details, tickets, and updates.
Are you ready to dive into the weird and wonderful world of cryptids, cartoons, and chaos? Meet Dirty Filth, Spaced Out Radio's resident cartoonist and master of the mysterious. Every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific, join him live on the Spaced Out Radio YouTube channel for Cryptid Cartoons with Dirty Filth, a hilarious hour where he sketches bizarre beasts, shares mind-bending stories, and battles his mischievous cats. Whether you're a UFO enthusiast, paranormal fan, or just love quirky art, Dirty Filth filters the universe through his unique lens, creating cartoons that capture the strange, dark, and supernatural. Follow Dirty Filth on X at Filth1 or Facebook at Dear Filth for more filthy fun. Find his link in the description below.
Spaced Out Radio wants to hear from you. We love our community, and your voice truly matters. Drop a comment after every show and let us know what you thought. Agree with our guests? Tell us why. Disagree? We want to hear that too. We read every single comment. Jump into the live chat during the broadcast and be part of the conversation in real time. Got a killer topic idea? Your suggestions help shape the show. And if you want to take it even further, join our Patreon for bonus content and direct feedback opportunities with Dave and the team. This is your show as much as it is ours. Whether you're a longtime listener or brand new, we want your thoughts, your questions, and your ideas. And let's keep building this incredible community together. Spaced Out Radio, where the conversation never ends. What are you waiting for? We're listening.
With 5 explorable Gold Rush-era buildings said to be home to spirits of a time forgotten, the 108-mile heritage site in the heart of BC's Caribou region offers a unique opportunity for thrill seekers and history buffs. For an evening of historical fun, step into our guided ghost tours, where spine-chilling stories of Gold Rush legends and unexplained encounters come alive. For those craving even more, inquire with us about conducting a hands-on paranormal investigation of your own. And if you're truly brave, book our haunted sleepovers. Spend the night at our B&B inside the McNeil House to truly experience this historical landmark and its ghostly secrets firsthand. For booking or inquiries, go to haunted108.com.
And we bring back Olav Phillips now. Thank you, everybody. As we got about 35 seconds before we launch. Big thank you to Little Mikey, T-Bone, and Claudette for the super chats. Thank you to T-Bone for gifting a membership as well. If you're wondering why I haven't said hello to anybody yet, it's not that I'm being rude. It's that I had a real crap start to this show, and I figured, you know what? I'm just, I didn't want to have to redo everything again because I forgot to turn my mic on. Yeah, so it's been a rough one, but that's okay. We're coming back in 5 seconds, everybody. Here we go with the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Entheomania. Entheomania is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the clams. That's the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. We're talking NASA and their deliberate, let's say, snafu of not admitting that they were into UFOs. It made for some foolish talk a couple of years ago, and we bring in Olav Phillips, author, researcher, publisher. Thank you, Olaf, for being here. You know, a few years ago when Bill Nelson, former astronaut, took over NASA, he's since retired. He came out on his opening press conference and he was like, you know, we got to figure out these UAPs. I've seen these Navy pilots and what they're seeing is absolutely interesting. And nobody ever asked him to open up their closet, Olaf.
No. I'm very disappointed that they didn't. I mean, like I said, as basically a research operation, I mean, that's really all they do. And great things come out of it. You know, I'm a big fan of NASA. You know, I worked with NASA people. They're fantastic. They really care. And they're great people, great engineers. You know, it was a very wonderful experience, you know, working with my teammates who are from NASA. But the hierarchy of it up at the top, you know, it's a political thing. And you know, I don't know why they didn't release it, but they should have. I mean, their whole thing is science, so let the science speak for itself.
Speaking of the science, let's get into that now.
Sure.
UFOs. What kind of science advancement do you think that we could be looking at if it was released?
You mean if the UFO part was released?
Yes, not the UAP part, the UFO part.
Oh, I wouldn't even know where to begin. I mean, propulsion, physics. I mean, it would material science, like it would change everything. It would honestly change everything because you're getting something that, you know, conventionally, right? We can get to the moon. We just shot some people around the moon again. We can land things in Mars. That's about conventionally, that's about the limit. You're talking about a vehicle that came from another star system, right? So how did it traverse that distance? How do they communicate over that kind of distance? I mean, even if it was only, 10 or 20 light years, which is kind of your next door neighbor, right? It's like, how do you send a message from here to, Barnard Star, Alpha Centauri, whatever? How do you do that with any kind of efficiency? Because if you send a radio signal, it's going to take a really long time. I mean, if you use a laser, it'll take 20 years for that bit to get there. Radio is even worse. So, yeah, it would change everything. It really would.
Anna Polina Luna basically was saying that she believes that we already have the technology here from these craft that, it goes beyond flying at light speed. It goes
Sure.
beyond doing anything, out of what we can conceptualize scientifically
Mhm.
from what we have learned through physics and astrophysics and you name it. So I'm
Yeah.
just curious. I mean, if that stuff is there and she's not talking out of her mouth just to make things up to be part of the conversation, you know, that's pretty amazing that we could have all of this at
Well,
our disposal, but we're not doing anything with it publicly.
I go back to the head of the Lockheed Skunk Works. He did that Caltech dinner. I mean, we talked about this before, and that was corroborated by Jan Harzan, who was one of the guys that ran MUFON, for whatever you think of them. But Ben Rich, he took the podium and said, "Not only do I have the technology to take ET home, I got the contract." And Ben Rich is not a guy that would say what he didn't believe, right? That's probably the most damning thing that's ever been said outside of the Reagan thing about if we were all Earthlings, the thing that Ben Rich said is very underplayed. And it's very significant because Ben Rich is not into fantasy. He built real planes that did real things.
No, I
So
get that, and I can totally appreciate, Ben Rich's words and Jim Goodall of the
right.
United States Aviation Hall of Fame. He's been on this show to say the exact same thing, and him and Ben Rich were pretty good friends over that time, and Ben Rich had Jim's books sitting in his office, so it really, in my opinion, is kind of amazing that we see this and we have this going on right
Right.
around us, and the majority of the public just has no clue that it's right under our noses and we can't even see it, Olaf.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you talk to a DARPA, somebody who worked in DARPA, right? They'll never tell you what they did, but you can get little things out of them occasionally. And the estimate that I've heard is anywhere from 50 to 150 years technologically more advanced than the commercial world. So if you think about that, right, I'm driving around, I have a Toyota SUV. So I'm driving around my Toyota SUV, right, burning gas. Well, minimally, they have technology that's 50 years ahead. Okay, so what should I be driving, right? And maximally is 150 years in advance. So, what does that mean to my Toyota SUV from 2006, right? So, yeah, no, I mean, it changes the potential, changes everything, that kind of technology. Because, I mean, look, you're gonna, in order to go from a local star 20 light years away, you can't just go to light speed. This isn't Star Wars. Like, you don't just go to light speed, right? You have to accelerate to light speed, and you cannot achieve light speed because at the speed of light, mass is infinite. So there's too much, you don't have enough fuel. So, a best case I've seen is like point 0.5. Okay, so in order for me to go to a star, it would take 20 light years away. It would take me 40 years to get to accelerate, run, decelerate. It'd take me 40 years one way. And also there's the whole relativity problem that the closer you get to light speed, you have time dilation. So it's like I leave and come back, and let's say it takes me 10 years, just for the sake of argument. I go and come back, it's 20 years of time for me, right? But it could be 1,000 years on the Earth. So the only way to do it is to fold space, wormholes, warp drive. But they would obviously have that because they transited that distance and can do it at will. So they have, and this is the whole Bob Lazar argument of how the UFOs that he said he worked on worked, that they used the gravity amplifiers to fold space. And then they would move across a relatively short distance, and then they turn off the gravity amplifiers, and then space would unfold. But that's a hell of a lot better than the 737 I'm going to jump on if I go to Hawaii.
Well, and that's kind of the point that I made on this show also is, 50, 60 years ago when the Boeing 707 first came out, it was still taking 6 hours to fly from my closest airport, which is Vancouver, to New York. And with all the advancements we've made technologically in the last 60 years, it still takes 6 hours to get from Vancouver to New York.
Yeah, because, out of the entire Boeing fleet, right, they all travel at about the same speed, except for one. The 757 can approach Mach 1, like it's like 0.75. But the rest of them, yeah, you're going 400 and some odd miles an hour. And, it's to go any faster, you would have to use jet engines and, like a real upgrade to the jet engines that they're using. You need like afterburners or aerospike engines or whatever. So they never the Concorde, right? But how many people do the Concorde carry? Like it's not economical to build, hyper fast commercial aircraft. It's about money, Dave. It's the economy, stupid. I mean, it's all about money.
That is very true. That is very true. We continue
No, I
on
mean,
with
go
the
ahead.
UFO alien talk here with Olav Phillips here on Spaced Out Radio. We're expecting a second drop, 46 videos. What do you think the public reaction is going to be if we just see dots again? Flying dots.
I think the hype will wear off. That's probably part of the plan. I think part of the plan is to go ahead and release the videos so that people can be awed and think they're UFOs when they're drones. And by the way, somebody in the chat asked, what is a military drone capable of? That's kind of a loaded question. I mean, we're talking about UAPs and drones, right? That really depends. I mean, what kind of drone you're talking about. You have drones now that are hypersonic, right? Supposedly the SR-72 can be unmanned. Like it has a cockpit, a person can fly it, but theoretically it could be flown remotely or by itself, right? But you take it all the way down to a quadcopter that you see in the Ukraine, you've got a quadcopter with a hand grenade on it. So I mean, there's a wide variety of different drones that accomplish different things. The vast majority of them are small. They're purpose built like a switchblade. You launch it, you fly it around. It's called loitering. You fly it around for a while and then you ram it into a tank. Things like Global Hawks or Global Hawks, they fly at 40, 50,000 feet. They take photos and they listen. You have things like the Scan Eagle, that's another drone, right, that you launch. You use a catapult, you launch it, and it flies around, it takes photos, right? It's not a munition. You've got ones like Predators and Reapers that fly at lower altitude. They loiter, they find a target, they blow it up. The Israelis have one called a Huron. It's kind of like that. It can do surveillance or it can drop bombs, fire missiles. It really depends on what you're doing. I mean, the Shaheed, the thing that the Russians used extensive, well, used, because we blow up all the factories now, but the Shaheed is a very simple prop-driven drone, and it flies from point A to point B, and when it gets to point B, it crashes into a target and blows up. It really depends on what you want to do. There's submersible drones. There's drones that are like boats, you know. I mean, there are all kinds of different drones, little tanks, dogs. I mean, there's very different ones, depending on what you want to do.
Why do you believe that most of the videos are drones?
Well, number one, I don't think they'd ever release a video of something they can't explain. It's bad for PR, to say that there's an object that defies logic. I think also, when you look at these vehicles, especially the thermal stuff, they're putting off thermal traces like it has an engine. This isn't some kind of bizarre exotic aircraft. Like it has a motor. There's one my friend sent to me. It's like a star, and it's like you're watching it, and it's making like a triangle, and it's interesting because it has like a contrail, and then
Right.
and then there's like a little puff every so far where it looks like some kind of engine is firing, right? But you can actually see in the video where the operator screwed up and actually had to correct. He went too wide. You'll see him jerk it and kind of get back in the flight path. I mean, it's a lot of these things behave like conventional vehicles. Maybe not the Tic Tac, but a lot of them behave like a plane or a helicopter or something with a more exotic, engine propulsion system. But they're not vanishing. They're not doing the crazy things that you'd expect something that's built by an alien intelligence would do. They're also seen in places that you'd expect to see drones, right? Doing surveillance. I mean, they just don't. I also go back to when they had that big thing with Congress, and the guy who was the DNI, he's sitting before Congress. He says, "Look, we've identified what these drones are. They put off radio emissions, they put off heat emissions. Like these are vehicles, and we know what they are." He actually admitted that. And if I'm an alien, why am I putting off radio signals? That makes no sense. Why would I not have something more sophisticated? And, from the description from the DNI and others, it sounds like they've actually intercepted the radio transmissions and decoded what they are. Because, a lot of drones, they operate using satellites. And it's like you can intercept that transmission and you can actually decode it and see what the message is, right? So it's like, Skinwalker Ranch. What do you think of Skinwalker Ranch, Dave?
Well, I think it is a hotbed area of paranormal phenomena.
Me too. I think it is a place of terminal weirdness. It's a very liminal place with a lot of weird stuff going on. So I forget the guy's name now, but the guy from NASA, the PhD, right? So
Yes.
I watch, yeah. So I watch it. Like I love watching it,
Yeah.
right? And over and over and over again, they spent all this money on all these radios and cameras and all this other crap, and they never seem to catch anything. Like they do, but it's like transient, right? But the one thing that they always catch constantly is, oh, there's the 1 gigahertz signal. Let's all freak out and stand around the radio, or stand around the whatchamacallit, the receiver. Wow, we got to figure this out. What is, that must be the aliens talking to their sky ships. No, a 1 gigahertz signal is the frequency range used by iridium modems. Somebody out there somewhere, and this is where it gets weirder. Somebody out there somewhere on Skinwalker Ranch has an iridium phone and is calling somebody. That's what that 1 gigahertz signal is. Or it's a sensor that somebody put on the ground, a camera, or something else that's sending telemetry because it's in short bursts. They're sending telemetry via iridium or other places, but they all use one 1 gigahertz. Like I watched that, I'm like, that's an iridium phone or iridium modem. And I called my buddy who worked on that stuff with me. He's like, yeah, that's an iridium modem, iridium phone. But they blow it out of proportion like it's some mysterious thing. That's how these UAPs are. A lot of these UAPs put off these 1 gigahertz signals because they're going back to iridium to get commands, to send telemetry, to send photos, videos, whatever it is they're doing. They put off radio signals. If some dude's flying at FPV, he's using RF. Well, that's radio. He's flying it with a pair of goggles. It's going to put off radio transmissions. Communications, command and control, it's all radio. Well, these things emit radio signals. If I'm an alien, why am I emitting radio signals? Why would I be using radio at all? Right? I mean, radio is an inefficient way to communicate. If I've got a thing that can go 20 light years in 10 minutes, why would I use radio? It makes no sense. That's why.
We have just under 4 minutes to go before we have to go to break. At the bottom of the hour, Olav Phillips is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Where do you think they're hiding the good toys? When I think about, the crash retrievals, is it Area 51 still? I've heard there's nothing there anymore. Is it White Sands? Is it Area 52 at Dugway? Is it still Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is tried and true?
I think some of it's at Wright-Patterson at the Foreign Technology Division. I think some of it is at S4, which is north of Area 51 at Papoose Lake. I think some of it's at Dugway. I think some of it's at Plant 42, right? I think some of it is places we don't even know about. That's what I think. But I think a bunch of it is at S4. The Bob Lazar thing. Years ago, I bought I think it was Mac Store. I bought a super high resolution photo of Papoose Lake, and I opened it up in Photoshop, zoomed it in and in and in. It was a huge file. I think it was like a 300 meg TIFF file or something crazy. And I found air vents on the top of that hill. And the only reason you have air vents is if you have a bunker under it. So I found the air vents for S4. There's something there. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something at S4. It is real.
Have you ever talked to anybody who's been out there?
Lazar.
Oh, besides Lazar.
I talked to a guy once that picked up some moon dust guys out in the middle of the Nellis test range. They were just standing in the desert. Like there were no tracks. Nothing. They just pulled up, picked up these two guys. They asked them what they were doing. They were like, "We're moon dust," and then they drove them back to Nellis. But there were no tracks. Operation Moondust, crash retrieval.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes it interesting.
Yeah, they were just out in the middle. Two guys out in the middle of the desert, not answering questions. I think that's highly bizarre. But Moondust is a whole show, some of the crazy stuff that they supposedly did. But no, I think it's, yeah. I think it's
what do you honestly think we have? Like, I believe the U.S. government has been in touch with ET technology or ETs in some way, shape, or form. But what do you think we have as toys?
I personally, I believe Bob Lazar. I think that they have the Sportster out there at Papoose Lake. I think that we have bits and pieces of various things, but I think they have. I don't think it was like an exchange or anything like that, but I do believe that they have fairly intact vehicles at S4. I mean, when you meet Lazar and you actually talk to him, he lays out a very compelling story. And he has also not changed his story since 1989. 1989. Over 25 years, right? He has never, 30 years, he's never changed his story, ever. it is still the same story over and over. And humans, if they're lying, you can't keep that straight. So I go with Lazar. I really do. Nice guy, really nice guy, really smart. One of the smartest people I've ever met. And that dude he's nice, he's humble, and he's hella smart.
And on that note, we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the
All right.
hour. We have Olav Phillips for the next half an hour on this show. And when we return, we will get to some audience questions. So if you're listening in on X, on Facebook, or YouTube, get your questions ready.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, buddy, we're clear.
Hey Dave, somebody put in the chat, nice people have never lied. That's nice people lie all the time. Nice people lie to your face, but there's something about him. I mean, when I walked in there, right, he had his deck Alpha 8 running shockwave calculations. I mean, the guy knows what he built. A linear accelerator in his garage. The guy knows what he's doing. I don't care what Stanton Freeman said. And he does have a W-2 from DNI. He paid taxes, whatever DNI had to do. But I do believe him. I saw the Corvette, man. I saw the Corvette. He showed me where the bullet hole was. I wish I still talked to him. He's a
He's in
fascinating
Klamath
guy.
Falls now.
He's in Klamath Falls now?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, just outside of Klamath Falls.
Yeah, I actually had land outside of Klamath Falls. I used to want to move there. A lot of plaid.
You need a lot of plaid to live in that area.
Yeah, I wanted to live in a place called Fort Klamath, which is on the way to Crater Lake. The problem with Fort Klamath, though, is that there's literally nothing there. I mean, literally, like it's just a few houses. Like there's nothing. Like you have to go to Klamath Falls or Bend to like get anything. Yeah.
We got 3 minutes, bud.
When I build that thing we talked about, I should talk to Lazar. He'd probably get a kick out of it.
Totally.
I went to Desert Blast.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the party in the desert that he used to have.
Right.
Yeah, I went. I saw the jet car with the F4 Phantom engine, the rocket backpack. There was a guy riding around on a mountain bike with a rocket engine strapped to his back that Lazar had built. I saw the Lincoln with the rocket engine, the CRX with the rocket engine. It was unreal. I watched him blow up a Peugeot. It was crazy.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, I went to one of the last Desert Blasts. Met John Lear, all those guys.
What was that?
It was interesting.
Yeah, when was that?
Oh, I was in college. So probably 90, 97, 98.
So you were what, about 35 back then?
No. I would have been 22, 23.
That sounds fun.
It was a trip. It really was. It was crazy. But no, it was, back then I was somebody. Not anymore. I got to get out there more though.
You definitely need to get out more often.
I do. Well, I get kind of bogged down in thinking. I'm not much of a self-promoter. But hey, what about David Wilcock? What was up with that?
That was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Not to yeah, I've tried to stay away from that story because I don't like reporting on that type of stuff.
I know, but it's weird. It's really weird.
I
I'm
don't
not
think there's
saying
I don't think there's anything conspiratorial about it, but I think
no.
as somebody who also suffers from anxiety and depression, I have a lot of empathy and sympathy towards what he was feeling, and
Yeah, absolutely.
so
I've been there. I mean, we've all been there at some point in our lives, right?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. We got 20 seconds.
no, I don't believe in the human breeding program.
Thank
I don't
you
think
to
you're
Little Mikey, Claudette, and T-Bone for the super chats. Greatly appreciate it. And get your questions in capital letters. Here we go. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in as we got Olav Phillips here till the top of the hour. And Olav, we've been talking UFOs all night long. I want to say a big thank you for taking the time for our audience tonight.
Oh, anytime. I love interacting with the SRR audience. They're one of the best audiences I've ever interacted with. They're fantastic. They ask great questions.
They're really good looking too. We have a good looking.
Yeah.
We do.
You have a good looking
Best looking audience in radio. Let me
That's
tell
right.
you. All right.
100%.
Let us go to an audience question here. Let's start off with Jeff Steve Garvey because he'll hit a home run for you.
Okay.
Olav, why would radar affect craft?
Well, I mean, I don't think it would affect a normal airplane. Obviously, they use radar and lidar. I mean, if you're talking about like an alien vehicle, they may not have any concept of radar. So when you hit it with a radar pulse, it might overload their navigation system or cause problems because they never engineered against it.
Well, Stanton Friedman believes that, if we go back to the Roswell crash, where for anybody who's really heavily looked into it, they believe there's two crashes that day, one in Corona and one in San Augustine. And Friedman believed that as well. And he believes that those two craft actually collided partially because of weather and partially because New Mexico at that time, which was a huge testing ground for nuclear bombs, was a good place to try and for these craft to kind of see what's going on with humanity. And he feels that maybe some of them just did not have the capability of working with the radar, and that may have caused the crash along with the weather. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally plausible. It's if they have no concept of it, they might have built something into their navigation. When the radar pulse hits it, it overloads it, scrambles it, confuses it, and then they collided. But no, I mean, a lot of UFOs are seen over nuclear reactors and missile silos and, things that are nuclear. That is a true statement. In fact, in the 90s, the triangles that were seen in England, they would go between, like energy facilities and fall along the freeways. And, there have been a lot of them seen around nuclear reactors. I think they saw some around Fukushima when Fukushima melted down, and Chernobyl. So yeah, no, I would totally agree that that's a possibility. Absolutely.
I think that's a possibility too. All right. Let's look at that as well. Do you think then that even with the technology to get here, that something like as simple as radar might be able to kind of screw up their technology?
Yeah, because if they never invented radar and they had no concept of it, they wouldn't build a defense against it, right? So if it might have reacted to the materials that they used to build the ship. I mean, there's a bazillion ways that the radar could have affected them and scrambled their flight control system. I mean, it's a vehicle that flies, so it has some kind of control system, and maybe a radar pulse. If they had no concept of it, then yeah, I mean, they wouldn't think about it. But that's the thing. That's why that's one of the ways you tell aliens versus humans, right? Because an alien is not going to think like a human. They're going to think in an alien way. It's like if I go to Japan, the Japanese person doesn't think like I do. I think like a Westerner. I think like a Western, somebody coming from Western Europe or Scandinavia or whatever. I have this kind of construct in my head of how the world works. To them, they have a different construct. It's not better or worse, it's just different. So an alien would not think in the same way that we would. They wouldn't apply the same kind of rationality that we have.
No, that's very true. I never
Mhm.
really thought about it that way. You just think
Yeah.
that because they're so advanced that they're probably going to be able to whip through that no problem.
They're not foolproof. That's the thing. Some crashes, some supposed UFO crashes are probably mechanical failures or electrical failures or navigation failures, because whether it's alien or human, nothing's perfect, right? I think we apply too much mysticism to technological mysticism to them, but they're imperfect. They're imperfect organisms just like we are.
Good way of thinking.
Yeah.
Good way of thinking. Let's go to Yennefer. Yen, she prefers a soft J instead of a hard J.
Okay.
Do you believe everything Bob Lazar has said, such as the human alien breeding program?
So the answer is no. I never believe everything that anyone says, except for Dave. But if you look at what Lazar said, is that he was briefed and that's what they told him. It's not necessarily what he believed, it's what they told him. They also showed him videos that apparently showed Jesus being crucified. And he's always been very upfront about that. It's like, I don't know if it was real or not, but that's what they showed me. And that's what they told me. Now, in these kinds of programs, they will tell you things that are not true, right? To keep you off the track of what you're actually doing. So, I definitely don't believe there's, his stuff about the program. I mean, I do believe that there is some kind of, based on, anecdotal stories and stuff, that there is some kind of experimentation going on, like a hybridization program, maybe, right? But I think it's more scientific than trying to save a species or anything else. It's, but I don't think it's anything that's like organized, and I don't believe there's an organized program now, especially involving the U.S. government.
What do you think of Matt Gates's comments a few weeks ago when the former congressman was being interviewed saying that he believes there's like 14 different bases where alien human hybridization programs are going on right now?
I don't believe it. I mean, that's his opinion, but I think the big question would be why. And the only thing you can say is, well, it's a trade. We give them humans and to do the hybridization programs, they give us technology. It's like maybe, but I think with the implants, it seems to me more like it's them. If there's anything like that, then we're working with them, because the implants, they're tags. It's the same way you tag a cow, you tag a moose, right? They put a radio transponder on a moose, and that radio transponder relays telemetry. It says, okay, the moose is over here today. And in some cases, they have more sophisticated ones where it's relaying over radio, its heart rate or its temperature or its respiration rate, right? That's basically what an implant, I think, does. And so they're tagging people like cows or moose or whatever, turtles. They're tracking them and watching them. I do believe that.
Let's move to another question here.
Sure.
Let's go to necessary. What is the best UFO file you expect to ever see?
That's a hard one because it's like based on what? I mean, I think at some point, they might maybe release something from Rendlesham, or because that was heavily documented, or something about the experiences at Minot or the missile fields. They might release something about that because a lot of that stuff's already known, right? But it might, I think it'll be something like that. It'll be some kind of interaction with the military that's highly documented, but really tells you nothing. I put my money on Rendlesham because there's left at Eastgate. Those guys have talked and talked and talked. So maybe transcripts from the OSI interviews, um, something like that. That'd be my guess, but it'll be nothing new, nothing interesting. Maybe a little more detail, but
I want to see Roswell. I think Roswell's the key.
it is, but you'll never get it. Because
What about the
if you
Holloman base video?
oh, Holloman, that's the one I was thinking about. Not it. It wasn't Edwards, it was Holloman. Probably not. I mean, you've seen some stuff. Like there's a video that was shown on Sightings years ago from the tag was S3, but I have no idea where it came from. Somewhere in Nellis, and it's of a aircraft doing some pretty weird stuff. It's like a ground camera. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think you're going to get anything shocking. I really don't. They can't even release all the Epstein files. You think they're going to release a film from Holloman of a UFO landing and us talking to the occupants? That's never going to happen.
Well, I fully understand that. I know exactly with what you're saying, but in my opinion, if I could have disclosure, like real
Oh yeah,
disclosure,
yeah.
it has to start with Roswell.
I think Roswell and Shag Harbor. I think Shag Harbor's the other one.
What
But I
about
think, yeah.
Shag Harbor?
Well, they collected the material. I mean, the stuff that the UFO was spitting out to kill the dog, like they collected that stuff. And then, there's the whole thing about, like, I think in both Roswell and Shag Harbor that they put like material, like wreckage, onto transports, and those transports crashed and disappeared and whatever. I think there's a lot of documentation and some real funny business about Shag Harbor. So I think between Shag Harbor and Roswell, I think you get a really good view. But Roswell, I think you're right. Roswell is the key.
Yeah, Roswell to me is the key.
I think so.
That's if you're heading into Charlie's Chocolate Factory, you need the golden ticket. And I think Roswell is that golden ticket.
Yeah, and they documented the hell out of it. So, and the whole cover story thing, it's like they put so much effort into the Roswell thing. If they were going to release anything, I think that's probably the key to the kingdom. I
Yeah,
think you're right. Yeah.
yeah, I would totally say that. And I look at with so many people who have said about Roswell, about the triaxle trailer for a semi truck. You don't need that for a weather balloon. A platoon of soldiers coming in to cordon off the area. If it's a weather balloon, you don't need that many people.
Well, the body bags and, it's all that stuff. I mean, the whole thing is bizarre. And Marcel, he knew what he was doing. Like, he wasn't a rank amateur at this, right? You're the intelligence officer for the only nuclear equipped squadron in the world. You don't put a dumbass as your intelligence and counterintelligence guy. He knew what he saw. Like, he is the kind of person that would be very good about identifying what he saw and documenting it. No, there's just so much there that if you're going to release one, it'd be that, or Shag Harbor. I do think there's a lot of documentation about Shag Harbor.
Let's go to the next question.
Sure.
What types of extraterrestrial species do you think are out there?
It's just a guesstimate, but I mean, you've got people have reported seeing obviously the grays and the the reptilians and the praying mantis people. I mean, honestly, scientifically, I would say that there's probably an infinite number, right? You might have a planet where there's mushroom people. I don't say that, to be stupid. I mean it. That you really don't, like an entire society built off of some kind of life form that evolved from a fungus. Funguses and mushrooms are very sophisticated. They're far more sophisticated than we give them credit for when we eat them on our pizza, right? They have a whole neural network that exists under the ground, and they communicate. So I think there's an infinite number of possibilities on what kind of alien life there could be. I think that there's we're carbon based, but maybe there's something silicon based. Who knows? Organisms that breathe ammonia. I mean, we have those here deep in the ocean. They can live in volcanic craters, like they can inhale sulfur and ammonia, process it. So who knows? Sky's the limit.
As long as they're as gorgeous as my audience, that's what I care about.
There you go.
That's what I care about. Never mind
Me
the
too.
alien grays with the big eyes and, they don't speak. They just take you and do bad things to you at times, sometimes good things, but sometimes bad. Don't want them.
Yeah.
Don't know how I
Yeah.
would react to a reptilian or a mantid. But if we're getting into the Pleiadians and Nordics, I'm okay with that. I'm ready to go.
There you go. And we should talk about the what was that case? The Betty and Barney Hill case sometime.
Right?
Yeah. There's some inconsistencies to that one.
Well, it's funny. Christian McLeod, who will be up next, I believe he has some information from Betty and Barney Hill.
Yeah, I don't think that whole thing is what we think it is. I think it's something radically different. I
What do you
wrote
think
about
it is?
that. Huh?
What do you think it is?
I think they were abducted by Nazis. I don't think they were gray aliens. I think they were Nazis or some offshoot of Nazism.
Oh, I disagree with you on that one.
I don't know, but Barney Hill in his first initial regression talked about seeing men wearing a uniform that's very similar to the one used by Panzer crews in World War II, and they were brought aboard the ship by a red-headed Irishman with a German Shepherd. That and the Marjorie Fish star map. What alien is going to put the Earth at the center of their map? It makes no sense. You put the center of a map where you're from, not where you're going. There's a lot of it that doesn't make any sense. The early hypnosis sessions talked about humans wearing peaked caps and black jumpsuits, which is the same kind of uniform a Panzer crews wore in World War II in the SS Panzer divisions. So there's a lot about that doesn't make any sense. I think the grays came later. I think that came through inadvertent suggestion. I wrote all about it. It's in the book. I sound like that old commercial. Buy the book.
Buy the book.
Buy the book.
Buy the book. How often do we hear that? Not so much anymore.
Every episode.
Oh, my
I wrote a
friend.
book.
I actually, on my Facebook sidebar here, on Facebook a couple of months ago, I actually put that on there. I was tired of authors coming on and saying, buy my book.
You know
I
what?
had this one author absolutely tear me apart. Like it was his God-given right to come on my show to bless me.
Yeah.
To have him talk about his book.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dave, I'm going to be a different author. Don't buy my book. You can email me. My email is olav@anomalies.net. Email me and ask me a question. I'll just answer it. You don't have to buy the book.
Right?
Just email me. I just gave you my email address. Go for it.
Yeah, I got absolutely roasted on that one.
Olav at anomalies.net. If you ask me a question, I will answer it. You don't have to buy the book. And
Yes.
don't believe me. Don't believe a goddamn thing I said. Go look it up.
And the other big thing too is if you do email Olav, you can also get tips and shopping locations for deals on plaid clothing.
Yes, I wear plaid quite a bit.
Quite a bit. Dude, you live in it.
I do. I live in it. Plaid. I wear plaid shirts and shorts. My preference, if anybody would like to gift me a plaid shirt, I like Carhartt.
Very true. We got about 4.5 minutes before we have to wrap this part portion of the show up with you, Olaf.
Sure.
What do you see coming within the next few drops? What can the U.S. government give the public?
I think you're just going to get more crap out of Blue Book, and I think you're going to get some tantalizing videos of drones flying around in triangles and circles. That's my honest appraisal. I think you're going to get some UAP stuff that they don't care that you see, and in some ways, it's probably a message to the Russians and the Chinese of what we can do, right? But other than that, I don't think you're getting anything earth shattering. I think if you really look hard at it, like I said about those moon photos, a lot of those moon photos, they back up what Hoagland has said. And by the way, Hoagland is very much alive, but I'm on his email list. I got an email this morning, but some of that stuff, I think if I went in and screwed with the color levels, I think I could bring out the structures. So I think you'll see more of that. But whatever you get, if there's anything to it, you're going to have to really dive deep into it. Nothing is going to come easy to you. But there will be stuff in there that's anomalous and weird. But you have to think through what you're looking at. You have to really work it. You can't just, they're not going to give you a picture of an alien standing next to Richard Nixon.
How long until we start seeing maybe the talk of aliens or non-human intelligence coming through?
If it ever happens, definitely not for the next 2 or 3 years. We got more problems than that. That's not something I think the Trump administration wants to take on. This is easy. This is like the easy button. Everybody wants the Area 51 files. Easy button. We'll release some garbage to them. They can go read it. Have fun. You've got the highest inflation rate in the last 4 years. You've got ballooning national debt. You've got a war in Iran. You've got who knows what they're going to do with Venezuela. They've talked about invading Cuba. I mean, we got problems. You got the war in the Ukraine. You've got the Israelis killing everybody in Gaza and southern Lebanon. We're fighting with NATO. The Emirates just pulled out of OPEC. It's like we got bigger problems, and I don't think they want to open up that can of worms. So I would say at least 2 years before you have the potential to see it. You can only manage one crisis at a time, and the Trump administration is trying to manage about 4 or 5 of them, and not doing a good job.
How do you see this breaking down? How do you see them playing the alien card here?
I think they use it to cover up something else. That's what they did with the A-12 and the SR-71. I think they use it as a distraction. I've always said that, when you see things like this, don't look at the UFO files, go look at everything else that's happening, right? When he invaded Venezuela, don't look at the invasion of Venezuela. Look at all the other stuff that's happening, right? When they blow up these ships, these little boats, these drug running boats, don't look at the blowing up of the drug running boat. Look at somewhere else. There's something else going on. These are distractions. The thing in Iran is a distraction. There's something else going on. And it might be UFOs. I don't know, but there's something else going on. That, and I think he thought that he could do it in 48 hours, which was never going to happen.
Olav, I want to say a big thank you for you coming back on Spaced Out Radio. with your great knowledge and understanding of everything that's going on. You're one of the good guys in this field, my friend, and I always love it when we can share the airtime.
Oh, I love coming on SOR. You've got a great show, a great audience. It's always a pleasure, and I'm very grateful that you allow me to come on, and I appreciate it very much. And have a wonderful night.
Olav Phillips, everybody. Coming up next, Swamp Dweller and our good friend Christian Mloud.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, buddy. Appreciate you. Let's talk soon, okay?
I appreciate you too, and I appreciate your audience. And yeah, we'll talk soon. I'm gonna go watch some cooking shows. Lots of love.
Much love. Take care.
Much love. Later. Bye.
Bye.
Stop now! You're under arrest! Hands up! Don't move!
Don't get caught without your Spaced Out Radio merchandise. We have t-shirts, mugs, hoodies, socks, hats, stickers, and so much more. Whatever you're looking for, we have you covered. Why just be a fan of the paranormal when you can look the part? We don't have ugly merch, folks. Check out the Spaced Out Radio store. Find the link in the description below.
Dirty filth. Dirty filth. Dirty filth.
Object is heading north 045 degrees. It's definitely not a plane. It seems to be tethered to something. Is that a banner, Joe? Caribou Con. Does anyone know what Caribou Con is?
Caribou Con, one of the BC Caribou region's best-kept secrets. Until now. Join our panel of renowned paranormal experts for a weekend of fun and intriguing presentations. Go to cariboucon.com to book or inquire now.
Over here. Look at this.
Discover Spaced Out Radio on all your favorite platforms. We're live every single night with the best in UFOs, cryptids, paranormal, and the unexplained. And you can find us on all your favorite platforms. Head over to Instagram for behind the scenes and daily weirdness, TikTok for quick mind-bending clips, Facebook for community discussions, and X for real-time updates and hot takes. Wherever you scroll, Spaced Out Radio is there. So go search Spaced Out Radio on every platform, hit follow, and turn on notifications so you never miss a single episode. The Weird is waiting. See you there.
The McNeil House is one of several buildings at the 108-mile heritage site said to be haunted by spirits of a time long forgotten. But would you stay the night? Along with guided ghost tours and paranormal investigations, Haunted 108 is offering a chance to spend the entire night inside the historic McNeil House by booking one of our B&B style sleepovers, where you can experience the hauntings firsthand, meet the resident ghost cat, and witness unusual activity. If you dare to turn history into a night you'll never forget, book your spot now at haunted108.com. Spots are limited. Will you be brave enough?
All right. Thank you for sticking around as we bring in the handsome, the venerable, the gorgeous Christian Mloud. There he is.
I can't argue. I can't argue with that.
How you doing,
How
buddy?
you doing, brother?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Doing good.
That was an interesting guest you had. I've never heard him before. That was new theory on the Betty and Barney Hill. I've never heard that one.
No, neither had I.
Yeah, Nazis. Huh. About 20 years late, all right? 63, 40, yeah.
We're coming back in 20 seconds. Thank you to our super chatters tonight, T-Bone, Claudette, and Mikey. We really appreciate it. Thank you, T-Bone, for also gifting a membership. And we're going to come back here in about 5 seconds. And here we go. We are now into the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network, our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, and Theomania. And Theomania is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. Hello, my name is Lindsay. I'm a 19-year-old female living in Pennsylvania with my parents and two of my sisters. We live in a rural area, and there isn't much that goes on out here. I listen to your stories every single morning at work and always wish I had a scary story of my own to share. Well, tonight, I got my own frightening tale. To preface the story a bit, my older sister and I have been hiking once before this experience, so we are not pros by any means. However, we always bring some safety items such as pocket knives, flashlights, and a medical kit. For this story, I will not be using my sisters' names for their anonymity. My older sister will be called Mary, and my younger sister will be referred to as Farrakha. So it was Farrakha's birthday, and she has never really been hiking. So we figured we would bring her on a little hiking trip to take advantage of the beautiful weather. The area we walked at prior is part of the state game lands. Hikers are permitted on the mountain trails during the off-season of hunting. However, not many folks know about this spot because there are no signs or anything until you walk the mile or so into the woods. By then, you reach a small parking lot of sorts that's usually empty. There are two main trails with the occasional blue dot on a nearby tree. If not for these spray paint dots to mark the path, you might not ever know that this was a trail because of how little use it really gets. Probably not the best first hiking spot for a couple of newbies like us. I know. It's super close to us and makes for a quiet hike with lots of scenery. So we decided to hike that trail again because we were somewhat familiar with it. We were excited and ready to have a nice relaxing walk through the mountain and hopefully get some cool pictures. We started walking from our house to the bottom of the hill, where we would begin our hike. On our way there, we were telling Farrakha about the trail and how beautiful it was. Mary then expresses concern that there could be animals of all sorts nearby because not many people live in this area. It's usually a site where animals would be, of course. It is woods after all. Still, I never imagined anything like what I'm about to describe would happen. After walking for about 15 minutes or so, we reached the parking lot. Mary leads the way, with me in the middle and Farrakha following closely behind. The first few steps onto the trail require walking up a small but steep hill. Mary crested the hill before Farrakha and me, and as she did, we heard a loud rustling noise to our left. I naturally chalked the noise up to some birds or maybe a squirrel messing around in the trees. But then, Mary suddenly stopped in her tracks, causing Farrakha and me to pause briefly. Just as I was about to ask her what the problem was, Mary calmly said, "Turn around, guys." Farrakha and I looked at her, confused and not understanding what she meant. I started asking why, and she said probably the scariest thing I have ever heard. "There is something over there. Run." Now, that sentence was a lot more difficult for Farrakha and me because we know Mary very well, and she doesn't scare easily. So to hear the apparent panic in her voice as she ordered us to run away from something that neither Farrakha nor I saw was terrifying. Mary and Farrakha immediately started sprinting back down the small hill as I was still standing in my place. I quickly looked behind me, but I didn't see anything. I did hear something, though. I was still baffled because I had not seen anything, and Mary never said what she saw. I ran over to Mary and Farrakha, who were waiting for me just before the entrance to the parking lot. I think part of the reason I hesitated to run right away was because I thought Mary might have been exaggerating a little. I should have known by the look on her face that she was not messing around. I had a miniature hatchet multi-tool and pocket knife on my belt, and you better believe I had them at the ready. I had no idea what I was expecting, but I knew whatever might run out of the woods behind us would get a face full of stainless steel. When I reached my sister's, I asked Mary where we were running from. She told us to keep moving as she constantly looked back at the trail that we had just come from. She even told us to jog just in case it followed us. We did. After flying a quarter mile, Mary finally told us what we were running from. She said she looked in the direction of the noise we had all heard and saw a huge gray figure hunched over about 10 feet off the trail. She described it to be at least the height of Farrakha, around 5'6". It had long, gray, patchy-looking hair and/or fur. She said it looked bipedal, but she didn't stick around long enough to take in every detail about the figure. However, she did note that it looked like it was shuffling toward us. I believe that made her get us out of there so fast. She must have feared that we were going to be chased. I have never believed in monsters or cryptid, but Mary said she honestly has no idea what that thing was. We don't have any animals in Pennsylvania that match that description, at least as far as I know. I know that black bears sometimes stand on their hind legs, but they are not gray, and it didn't sound big enough to be a bear. The only other thing it might have been was maybe a human. But why would someone be dressed like that, and why would they hear us distressed and not call out to us and let them know that they were not a threat? Maybe someone was doing drugs and was scared they would be busted. I don't know. I swear I've gone through every scenario. I don't know if I believe in Bigfoot or anything like that, but who knows? When we were almost home, Mary told us that she used to go to the bus stop with 2 of the neighbor kids years ago. She said that they would always walk, and they would hear this mysterious animal. Sometimes they would see it walking around the woods near their house, which is very close to the state game land. They described it the same way, and said that it definitely looks like it's some sort of ape creature. At first, she did not believe them because she had never seen such a thing herself. But once, when the neighbor kid's grandmother was with them at the bus stop, Mary asked about this mysterious animal. The grandmother has always been religious and didn't seem to be the type to believe in something like these Bigfoots. But, to Mary's surprise, the grandmother said she also had witnessed the mysterious animal lurking around. Moreover, our house is just across the lawn from where our neighbors claimed to spot this unknown Bigfoot creature. I'm not sure if these two experiences are related. Besides, that was many, many years ago. But could the figure Mary encountered in the woods tonight be the mystery animal they saw all those years ago? Maybe it was a human or an animal. Who knows for sure? But what I do know is, I don't think I'll ever be hiking on the state game lands anytime soon.
Thank you, Swampy, for another spooky story. If you want more just like that, head on over to YouTube, type in Swamp Dweller, hit subscribe, ring that bell. Thousands of stories for you to listen to each and every time. Let's bring in the cryptid Gee himself. We call him Christian McLeod, Dr. Handsome of the cryptid world. There he is. We love him. Christian, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
It is always good for you. Filling in for Robin Haynes tonight, who unfortunately one of her good friends had a medical emergency, and she's at the hospital taking care of her friend. So God bless to her friend on getting healthy here. And so we're glad that we could call you up here and kind of get into it. You've had a few days now because a lot of people look at you as a cryptid paranormal investigator. But what a lot of people don't know about you, Christian, is you are actually a member of MUFON down in North Carolina as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, big fan of MUFON. For those of you who don't know, the Mutual UFO Network, it was originally, I guess you could say it's the remnants of J. Allen Hynek's Blue Book. That's actually what started MUFON. That's why I like it. You've got the amount of research and records that they give their members it's phenomenal. So it's just, if you're a researcher and you're really into the UFO thing, just join MUFON. It's totally worth it. They have their own TV shows. They have a database that is second to none. It's just incredible. And there's some really good people in there. I'm actually doing a speaking engagement for a MUFON friend of mine in Tennessee, I think in June 6th. And the only reason I'm doing it is just because they asked me to do it as a friend for, MUFON, but they're an incredible agency. Everyone, I've had MUFON hats and stuff I wear every once in a while. People are like, dude, you part of MUFON? Because they think it's like some exclusive club, or anyone can join it. But like I said, if you're really into the outer space thing or the alien thing, MUFON it's worth it. It's like $50 a year, but you get access to all this stuff. You get newsletters. It's very informative. You get discounts on some of the things they have going on. And like I said, very well organized, very well done, very classy group of people. That's all I can say. I've never met anyone in the hierarchy, but the people I've dealt with locally and in Tennessee and in Georgia, just the nicest group of people you can imagine. Just very straight shooters, all want the same thing, just want answers. That's all. Just want the truth.
Want to ask you regarding, the UFO files that were just released this past Friday, and the UFO world has been, skipping along to this, just trying to figure out what is going on, the videos that were released. What was your initial thoughts of it all?
Well, I actually sat down and I looked at pretty much all of them. I didn't, we went to FBI files and they had that download stuff there. And I just looked at all of them. And I was more interested in the ones from like 48 and 65 and 63 and stuff like that, because that's the stuff that if it corresponds with what we've been told, then it's probably real. And the reason why I like going back in history is because a lot of people don't think like that. I think some of the stuff to me, the reports I think they're just dolled up reports. I think some of them that I did kind of like glance at, a few of them, like the incident where they talked about, even George Bush said it happened when there was a Nordic that came down and talked to the president, I think in the 80s. He said that did happen too. So stuff like that, I'm giving it a little more credence to. But some of this stuff, I think it's misidentification of things. There was nothing really solid. If that's my biggest problem, there was nothing really like said, okay, this is definitely it. Here it is. Here's the one. Here's the crown jewel. I don't think that they've released that, and I don't think they will. And part of it, I think it's subterfuge. You had your host who had some very interesting ideas about Betty and Barney Hill, but he made a good point. This is just subterfuge. Look over here because we're over here. And that's something that all governments tend to do. When you're not paying attention over here, they're going to show you something over here, and then they're going to do something over there. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to get full disclosure, of course, but I really think I have a hard time blaming Trump for not giving everything, because I think he's doing the best he can. But my question is there stuff above him that they're just not going to release because, the military or the shadow government, if you want to call it that, the real powers that be, don't want it released? Is that a possibility? Of course it's a possibility. I don't want to sound like a total paranoid lunatic, but, the older I get, the more I realize that the people that we think are in power just aren't pulling the strings. And I think this is a prime example of that.
What do you think about the fighting back from other intelligence agencies against this movement of pushing these videos forward and bringing out more evidence towards the UFO and UAP subject?
It's the same. It's just to keep us pacified. They haven't released anything new that we didn't already know or see. It's not 20 years old. I mean, those videos that we saw, every video I've seen before. Those Tic Tac videos, I don't know how old those are. Even with the underwater ones, Joshua P. Warren, I want to say 15 years ago in Puerto Rico, spilled the beans on all that, and he actually had the full footage from the airport. So, I mean, there's a lot of video footage out there that we've already seen. I haven't seen anything that's particularly new. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is like, where's the definitive proof? Where's the absolute 100% definitive? Here it is. Here's the picture. Here's the video. Where is that? Because my other thought process is everything I've seen as of lately could have been made up on AI. I haven't seen. There's just nothing there to me that's just proof positive.
Well, apparently now what we are hearing is that Japan is about to release their UFO data. This is quite the turnaround from the 1980s, where when Japan Airlines 1680 had their intercept with the mile-long mothership
I remember that.
over the ocean just past Alaska, where that lasted for quite a while, and they ended up landing the plane, the 747 that was coming back from France, filled with wine. They ended up having to detour to Elmendorf Air Force Base for a debriefing of what the pilots saw. And those pilots were subsequently fired after taking the plane back to Japan. Now, Japan Airlines felt that they had brought embarrassment to the airline by going public about these UFO sightings, but eventually they got the pilots got their jobs back after a bunch of public outcry and concern for them. But I mean, Japan now coming out, where they are a very conservative society, way more conservative than the United States. Here they go. They're starting to release.
Well, I don't know if conservative is a word. If you look back in the historical culture, I tell you this, their ninjutsu, that's Japanese, the Japanese ninpo, was allegedly taught to them by the Tengu, which were water spirits, and some people refer to them as aliens. So if you want to go all the way back, you can say they're conservative, but the truth of the matter is they're very open-minded about, extraterrestrials, cryptids, things of that nature. So, I mean, it's in their culture. And when I say it's in their culture, I mean, it's a 1,300-year-old martial art that to this day people, still, learn and strive to be good in. And the reason why I like bringing that up is because that all strives to the fact that came to the Japanese from a completely different, a non-human source. So if they're finally starting to talk about what happened, I'm guessing they probably signed a deal with the U.S. I am convinced there's some kind of global. I don't know if it's not a conspiracy. I'm sure there's a global agreement that says, okay, we don't talk about this to our people. It's the same thing with Bigfoot, and the Russians, the Almaz, the Iceman, all the whatever you want to call it. I think that's a global agreement that the powers that be have. They say we do not discuss anything that we can't cover up. So nothing new gets shown. I think that's the biggest thing, and I think that's all done for power and control. That's a whole different topic, but that is what it's done for. It's done for power and control. Because if you know exactly all the variables in the equation, you can solve it. If someone doesn't have all the variables, they can't solve it. So again, knowledge is power, and it always will be.
When do you think we have to have the alien conversation?
Man, that's a good question. The truth of the matter is, I'm really surprised we haven't had to have it now. We have all this technology, all this stuff that, I've got a dear friend of mine that was in the military for years. And, you always hear the military's 30 years ahead of what you think we have and blah, 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 blah. I've been told point blank, it's not 30 to 60 years. They're so far ahead technology wise, and they have been for so long, they just don't release it. And I think the reason why they don't release it is because they'd have to admit that we got some of this. We just reverse engineered stuff from Roswell. I still think that was the case. I still think to this day, Roswell was the keystone. And if you read the book, I know I've said this a million times, and I'm not saying buy my book because it's not my book. I'm saying The Day After Roswell by Lieutenant Philip J. Corso, one of the best books for information out there. Everything that man said in that book has come out. It is 100% true. I use it frankly when I do any kind of dissertation or speeches on UFOs or anything like that. I bring in Philip Corso because the guy was never proven wrong. Everything he said he did, he proved. All his clearances 100% verified and proved, and everything he has said about UFOs is 100% been proven factual. And he's the guy that he was in charge of the people that were reverse engineering all the technology. So he point blank said, look at the jumps and leaps we've made in the last 10 years. And that's what they were showing people. They had CD technology in the 50s, man. In the 50s. When did that come out to the rest of it? In the 1980s? CDs? Think about that. So, it's just, I don't think we're ever going to know. I know the question was, when you think we're going to get disclosure, I think it's going to come when we need it. In other words, we've got a lot of stuff going on the planet. Everyone's blaming everyone for this and that. But the truth of the matter is, it's like that opening. I love your opening in your show, Spaced Out Radio, when you have that speech that Reagan gave about what would it take for us to come together as a human race. And that's kind of what I think that's going to happen. We're going to have to see some kind of threat from above, or we're going to have proof of intelligences. And then it's going to be, it's not going to be Canada, USA, USSR. It's not going to be in that. It's going to be, Earth. It's going to be, you're going to be proud to be a citizen of Earth. And I think that's what we need to kind of bring everyone together. But they should drop The Day After the Spielberg movie. I'm sorry. I just think it's going to be one of those things where we're just not going to know. They might be keeping this in their back pocket, just if everything just goes, to hell. And they say, okay, here's what we've been hiding. And then, boom, there's this. So then, think about all the problems that would just suddenly drop. Just like that speech Reagan gave. Think about that. Think about every little problem we have. Isn't going to be such a big problem anymore, is it?
Well, I mean, it kind of makes you wonder what is out there. How is it going to change the game plan of humanity?
Well, okay, here we go. Someone was talking about OPEC earlier in the side chat. I know that the other people can't read the side chats, but when you're talking about OPEC, who cares if oil is going to be worthless? What are we going to need oil for when you've got cold fusion or when you've got fission? It doesn't. You're not going to need it. So I mean, what's the economy going to look like without the need of petroleum? How's that going to work? I just read today that I think that we just finally built the hydrogen engine that actually works off of water vapor in the atmosphere. and they're not even going to. So they're letting stuff out. It's just so minute. I think they're trying to get us off the nipple of big oil, and I think if that ever happens, then it'll be a different playing game. But I think it's petroleum's probably the biggest thing keeping us away, and the money they have. I mean, let's face it, petroleum's got the biggest, it's the biggest cash flow on the planet, and we don't even really run all of it. So it's. I think it's gonna. I think it's got so many facts.
Hold on, right there. We're gonna go to break. Final break of the night. Christian McLeod in for Robin Haynes in the Q&A.
This is Spaced Out Radio. Your host, Dave Scott.
I will never grow sick of this picture.
I'm glad.
Never grow sick of it. Where's wifey tonight?
Dude, her grandmother passed away.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, so she drove down to Florida a couple days ago. She was really happy. She got to see her before she went. Like, she knew who she was. She recognized her. She got to tell her how much she loved her. And then today, she was pretty much catatonic, and at noon she passed.
Oh, man.
But
Make sure you send Christina some love from all of us, okay?
Yeah, well, she's, because her grandmother was like, they were inseparable. They were very, very close. In fact, I knew her grandmother before I knew her. Her grandmother was my middle school librarian.
Oh, wow.
And then Christine's mom, her mother, was my dean.
Oh, weird.
So I knew them before I knew Christina. Yeah. Very sad though. Yeah, she's not. Yeah, she's gonna need some time. I'm actually very worried about her.
Yeah. Oh, send her some love from us, okay?
I definitely will. Yeah, she doesn't know I'm on the show tonight. She told me to get she, and of course she's worried about me sleeping. That's kind of why her grandma, and she's like, well, you better get some sleepy time. And I'm like, don't worry about me. So she's gonna stay with her parents for a couple days and then come back.
I need you to make a video for me.
Okay.
For Caribou Con.
Yeah, no problem. What do you want?
About 15, 20 seconds. Just introducing yourself, and you can't wait to get up here and get your tickets now.
I'm going to have my toque on.
It's fine by me.
Start wearing my flannel.
It's fine by me, my man.
All right. Yeah. No problem. We'll get that to you.
I'd appreciate that.
Can I mention the McKenzie brothers?
No.
Damn.
No.
So close. You should tell people they're going to be there.
Well, you should tell them right now. Got to be there.
Everyone, you should go to Caribou Con. It's going to be awesome. I'll be there. That's all you need to know. Hopefully Christina will be there too. She doesn't know if she wants to go.
Christian will be signing pictures of this.
I will. I will sign that.
Fans.
I will sign that and give you a real business card.
You got to put that on your business cards.
Should.
Saying.
I should. That's the look. The look. The disdain.
Thank you, Tim Mothman, and your goatee. But you got to bring Christina up, dude. You can't come alone here.
I don't know what we're going to do with the dog.
Bring the dog.
You can't.
Yeah, you can.
You can't. You cannot bring the dog. Christine's checked into this. You can't fly with dogs up there. There's some kind of, or maybe you can. I don't know. Maybe it just doesn't pay it.
You better check into that. People fly with dogs all the time, dude.
Well, our dog's a tool. I mean, he's mean. He's just a jackass. He's not mean. He's just a jackass. He's really. I love the little fur ball, but he's an attention-seeking kind of thing. He's all about the attention seeking. So I don't know if that would be a good idea, but yeah, if we can bring him, we'll bring him. Because what we might have to do is fly him down to Florida and let him stay with the in-laws. My parents, they'll like split him up. But yeah, that's the problem. She took the dog with her to go see her grandma. She can't be without that mutt. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's her whole world. Sorry to say, but yeah, it is. Would they allow a dog from the United States up there? Or would there be different? I mean, he's had all the shots and everything, but would they be the same recommendations? Or
yeah,
I don't know how that would work.
Just check into it.
Yeah, no, I will. Because I'd like to bring him. I'd love to have him up there. He'd love that.
Yeah. I don't see why not.
Paramarv, tell Paramarv I still have that Reese's peanut butter. It's in the freezer, man. It is in the freezer.
I want to remind everybody, after this show, I will be joining Walter M. Sterling on the other side of midnight on WABC in New York for a few minutes just after this show ends. So we will be, ending the show when it does on time. But there will be no chatter afterwards because I have to go on the air. But I encourage you all to listen on in. And Paramarv is gracious enough to put the link up there. If you want, wabcradio.com/player. Here we go. We're into the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for listening in as we have Christian McLeod filling in for Robin Haynes on the Q&A tonight. Right before the break, Christian, I had asked you about whether or not we were ready for the alien conversation. And you said you're surprised that it hasn't happened already. Go into some detail about that.
Well, I mean, look at the way, the state of affairs on the planet. I mean, I can't stand here and say everything's great. We can't get along. Half the planet hates the other half of the planet. There's wars going on. I don't know how many wars are going on at this point in time. But I think the one way to unite humanity is, if there's a common cause, much like the way the United States was, unified when 9/11 happened. When 9/11 happened, politically it was all like it was today. Half the country was completely just disgusted with the other half and blah, blah, blah. Then that happened, and then everyone kind of got together and they saw the importance of unity. But I think more importantly, you need to see that on a global scale. Now, but the situation that would, need that would be just, it's incomprehensible. I just don't understand why, the powers that be just don't say, okay, listen, we're not alone. We haven't been alone. Here's what's going on. And by the way, it's business as usual because these entities aren't going to interfere with us. And we're not really getting anything from them. But by the way, if they wanted to take over, they could. There's that. So, I mean, how would you have that conversation, with the planet? I mean, can you imagine sitting down and, and I'm not a big fan of the UN, but can you imagine sitting down in the UN and trying to explain that to the world? It would be like impossible. I mean, it would not be easy. Because, of course, you'd have to give full disclosure, then you have to show all the proof, and then it would be, well, why have you been lying to us? Why haven't you told us this since, day one? And then they have to play, backstep, and then that's every government because, no one's told the truth yet. I would love it if Japan, when I didn't know anything about Japan coming out with their stuff, but when are they allegedly going to bring their stuff out?
They've apparently started releasing now.
See, I always figured Russia would be the one to just say, all right, now here it is. Because, they seem to be more like realistic in that kind of fashion. But I don't know. I don't know what Japan knows. Because, I mean, with the exception of that one incident you talked about, really, have there been a whole lot of UFO, sightings or happenings or?
Apparently they have had quite a few. The interesting one to me on if we look at Japan, I would want to know if they're landing in the volcano areas like Mount Fuji, because that seems to happen a lot on the West Coast here where there are a lot of UFOs seen flying in and out of the volcanoes, so I think that would be really, really cool to find as well. What do you think?
I mean, it's totally possible. I'm a huge believer that they have underwater bases. I've seen some of the USO videos, the underwater submerged vehicles or up on, identified flying objects that are doing 70, 80 miles underwater, but they look like they have that bubble around the ship. So it looks like they have some kind of force field around them that's just keeping them, giving them the ability to do that. But if you think about it, if you can have interstellar travel, then, I'm sure you would have the ability to land your aircraft in, 2,000 degree molten rock. I don't think that'd be an issue, but I also think you'd be able to take it 30,000 feet underwater too, because you've got some kind of shielding system that'll keep the pressure, and all that intact. And you probably have, and that's just saying that they're based, they actually breathe like us. We don't know what they even breathe, or if they do. So, I mean, maybe they just have different oxygen requirements that we don't know about. But there's just so many variables. That's the problem. But anything is possible. And I think what better place to hide than in a volcano? Yeah, we're for Rodan.
But there's also the other one that interests me would be the fact that there were allegedly UFOs seen around the time of the big Fukushima earthquake and the meltdown there.
Well, I mean, but here's my question: is what purpose would that serve for them? Now, would it be hard for an advanced civilization like that to create a tsunami? I don't think so. They could probably do it with some photon torpedo or whatever kind of weaponry they have. They could probably just create some kind of tidal wave. It wouldn't be that hard. But what would what's the end game? What would their reason be for doing that? That's what I would. There's always going to be a question and answer, or there's going to be an action and then a result, but you're going to have to explain it either way, or there's got to be a cause for something to happen. And what would be the need for that? That's my question. Why would they need to do that? It's like the Tunguska blast in Russia. A lot of people think that was UFO related. Why? What would be the need for them to knock down all that, acreage? What would be the point? It's just things like that. I don't think aliens do things without a plan. They're too advanced. They're not like us. They're not, all emotional, and I think they're just a lot more calculating. So everything they do, there's a reason for it. So if they're causing destruction, there's a reason for it. If they don't want to be seen, there's a reason for it. If they're, and then you see some of these videos where it's hard. There's that one video where one of the shuttles, not the shuttle, but one of the rockets that's going up, you see that little orb next to it. It looks like it shoots it and then it blows up. It's kind of hard to not, unsee stuff like that. So it's like, why would they do that to this particular rocket? What was actually on that? But see, we don't get the full truth. We don't know what was on that payload. And this goes back to all the way back to, the first time we landed on the moon. We went one time, that was it. Or we stopped going. Why? And now we're in such a rush to get back there. What's really up there? I mean, do you really think that we don't have any kind of base up there?
I think we do.
I think we got a huge one. I think we got a huge one. Because if you see all the rocket launches, everything that happens at night out of NASA that we're never told about, or all around the country, all around the world, what are they doing up there? Why are there so many things going up? You remember in the 2010s, they were shooting stuff up 3, 4, 5 times a day, and you never got any explanations for it. What were they doing with those payloads? Don't tell me they're all satellites. That's ridiculous. I think it was equipment for moon base. I think, and now that we've got a good foothold there, that's why they're talking about going back now. Now they found liquid water. Okay, well now we got this. We can do whatever we want. I think that's part of it. But was there something up there prior to that? I'm sure there must have been. Something kept us off that dark side of the moon. There was. I always go back to what the original Apollo astronaut said when they said, there's something out there. Then you have that 20 minutes of missing footage, when they're up there, and then boom, next thing you know, they're coming back. And not one of them has ever told the whole story about that. They've got part of it on video, and then they've got the other part on audio, and they're talking about seeing stuff, and then boom, all of a sudden there's that 20-minute break. So who knows, man? But I think that it's, I think personally it's about time we just release it. Just end all the speculation. If they're not friendly, tell them they're just not friendly. That's the way it is. That's just something we got to deal with. Yeah.
Do you think that if you start talking aliens, that it will lead to other mysteries like Bigfoot, like Dogman, like life after death, maybe reincarnation as well?
I mean, it might not really. And here's why. I think the Bigfoot phenomena or cryptid phenomena, it's a whole different thing. That's that's localized to the Earth. I think if we came out with aliens and then someone said, "Hey, what's going on with the cryptids? Is Dogman real? Xenocephaly real? Have all these reports throughout the centuries been real?" And they just simply say, "Well, yeah, we just don't really have a good idea of how they work biologically. We've never really catch one." It's like, and you could equate that with saying, why don't you put a great white shark in an aquarium? It's simple because they die. They just can't handle it. They have to be out there, and these animals could be like that. You just can't, you can't capture them. You can't keep them, contained because it'll kill them. And that way, that's the reason why we really have to study them. But if you announce that and then say, "Oh, by the way, all this stuff is true, but aliens are the biggest problem we have right now," I think guys like me, it's not going to matter what we say. No, I don't have a big enough audience to change anyone's mind or keep asking questions. In fact, they could shut me down in 2 seconds and no one would care. But I think it's an important issue to talk about because it still goes back to credibility of the people running the show. In other words, if they've known how they've had this information for say for the last 100 years, they've known there's cryptids out there. They've known that they knew during westward expansion. I'm a firm believer that when Lewis and Clark, because that's another whole thing that gets in. When you talk to Meriwether Lewis and Clark, and you talk about their expedition, they were called into the White House to talk to Jefferson, and he pretty much told them, he goes, the first thing you need to do is make friends with the natives because you're going to run into stuff out there that you're not going to know how to handle. There's depictions. I used to have one hanging in my classroom. There's depictions of Clark, and he drew this monster or this wood booger that they saw in eastern Tennessee, and it's a Bigfoot, but that's not ever talked about. The natives told him point blank, you're going to be running into more and more of these things, and he told them how to avoid them, things of that nature. So there's all this alleged speculation, all this stuff. We can talk about that for days. The bottom line is the people who run the show are going to decide what we have in front of us. And if I think they let something as big as aliens go, then everything else is just going to be trite. It's just going to be small stuff. Because to me, this is the big one.
I believe that. I believe it's the big one too. Like we have to be able to, kind of get deep into this subject. But it opened up. I guess what I'm saying is it will open up the doors.
Oh, it will.
Other phenomena. And, like I look at my area where I am, where I'm investigating. I don't really know if I want those doors open.
Because that's the problem. That's the dichotomy, man. And I get it. Do you imagine driving up there and you go up there one weekend to do investigating, and maybe you've made, peace with the other entities up there, and all of a sudden there's a busload of people and, some tour guide, because that's what's going to happen. They'll take every hotspot and turn it into a tourist destination.
Yeah. And, I don't know if where we would actually see an influx of people actually going out there and looking for Bigfoot or Dogman.
I think you would.
Ghost hunting. I don't think that may happen or it may not. I think it all really comes down to, how much people take this subject seriously. And I think that's the big problem they're going to have, because in today's life cycle of a news article, it usually only lasts a couple of days.
Well, no, Dave, I totally agree with you. But if you drop the big one on everyone, and let's just say 2 years go by, all right, just say you drop the big one, tell everyone there's aliens, there's, we're in communication with 10 or 12 or 12, whatever it is. And they're all out there. They're not big fans of us because we can't even get along in our own sandbox. So they really don't want us out there in the galaxy screwing stuff up. But, they tolerate us. And, here's what they take. They take resources every once in a while. You know, they might grab a person here. The problem is if they come out with saying, okay, yeah, they do grab people and there's nothing we can do about it, then you got problems. Because now they're automatically going to turn humanity against these things. So that, because, you know, okay, they're taking our people and there's nothing we can do about it. So that just tells me it's a Thucydides trap. You know, there's always a more advanced and intelligent civilization that attacks a less intelligent. You either get decimated or assimilated, and that's it. That's all you got. So that's how people are going to look at it. You know, and I wish I was wrong about that, but I know I'm not. Because you're not going to get a whole. You're going to have the people that are they'll be pro-alien, then they want pro-peace, and then there's going to be the people that say, "Wait a minute, they're taking our people, they're taking some of our resources, and we're getting nothing for it." Well, what's going to happen with that? And it's going to be a whole political division, and then you're going to have these hippies that want to, oh, they can have whatever they want. You know, they're all part of the universe, blah blah blah. But that's not how you have to protect your planet. Because we've met some of them. What about the rest of them? You know, do we have any guarantees from protection? You know, from an aggressive advanced civilization that sees our resources and wants them. You know, think about every movie you've ever seen about aliens. It doesn't end well for us. You know, and that's because we don't have the technology to combat them. As far advanced tech we've got, we still don't have it, and I think that's going to be the issue.
And that's part of the issue, is what is coming down. I don't see it as a threat narrative. I never have. I don't buy into that because I do believe that threats create budget. And there is no proof of it. If you talk to experiencers that have done polls, around 84% claim to have some sort of good contact.
Well, let me throw this at you. In 1966, my parents were in Rye Beach, New Hampshire, and they've been dating in high school, and they're both 16. And all of a sudden, over the beach, these saucers just came up out of nowhere. They kind of hovered. One of them stayed, and the other left. And then they came back, and then they all left together. And they were in proximity to a place called Pease Air Force Base. Now, at this point in time, Pease Air Force Base was a nuclear depot, but no one knew it. It was in New Hampshire. They had nuclear missiles there, and no one knew it. My mom told me point blank. I remember my dad telling me this, and my uncles, because they were all playing football on the beach. They said within 15 minutes there was 30 or 40 cars from the Air Force Base there. They wouldn't let anyone leave. They got everyone's name and information. Then he asked them what they had seen, and after they were interviewed, they could leave. And then 2 days later, my parents, both living in different houses, living with their families at the time, had visits from people that were at Pease Air Force Base. Now, the reason why I'm bringing that up is this is because this was seen by a nuclear air base. This was seen by a nuclear missile base that no one knew was there. Are they going to have that same kind of, coverage for things that have finally been, addressed? In other words, are they going to have? Is there going to be an agency? Is there going to be like an alien agency now? Is there going to be like a UFO division of part of the military? I mean, how's that going to handle? You have to look. This thing encompasses a whole lot more than what most people think, and I think that's the point I'm making. Is this is a lot bigger than most people think? Because the average person is, okay, listen, do you believe in aliens? Oh yeah, sure. Okay, that's fine. And you start thinking, but when you get collective and you get people with paranoia, then you have problems. I think that's another issue why they're not really talked about, is because then you have a locus of control. How are you going to control 200, 300,000 people marching and turning violent because they found out there's aliens, and now they believe that because that's true, the Bible's not real. That's the biggest problem I think you have. Now, frankly, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I'm a proud Catholic, and when people say, "Well, don't you think that alien would blow that?" I say, absolutely not. And the Nicene Creed: God created everything visible and invisible and in the universe. All right, so they could possibly have souls. We don't know. They could be created by the same divine being that created us, if you want to go down that route. But you have to give people the opportunity, to know what's going on. And that's the biggest problem. If you give people enough time, they can absorb it and they'll be comfortable with it. If you just drop it on them and say, okay, tomorrow we're going to have, 50 delegations from 50 different star systems. They're going to land at the White House. And that's why they really redid the ballroom, by the way. I mean, it's just, you just never know. You got to give people time to absorb stuff.
We have about 2.5 minutes to go in tonight's show. And I want to say, great job tonight. When we look forward to the next drop, because this is supposed to be the first of many drops that are going to be happening over the next few years, we can expect, unless it gets all of a sudden shut down in Congress or the Senate, or who knows, maybe a few years from now, and a new president says, no, we don't need to go there anymore. Let's stop this. What do we need to look for as a public that is going to show us proof that this is real?
I mean, see, it's going to be one of these things where the whole world's going to have to see it at the same time. If they're not going to disseminate the information and say, okay, here's what we got, little by little, till we have the whole thing, which they're not going to do. Obviously, they're not going to do that. It's going to be one of these things where we wake up one morning and there's, 5 or 6 motherships surrounding the planet, and they're setting down, divisions of soldiers, and they're going to talk terms of either surrender or, compliance. So, I mean, it's the way it's going to be. I mean, again, until we have the ability to defend ourselves with, weaponry comparable to theirs, we really can't do anything. So it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be a good day. I really don't. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's going to be cool. We'll be welcomed into the galactic family. We offer nothing but destruction. All right. I've said this before. I'll say it again. We can't even get along. Look at, the Middle East has been going on like this for how many thousands of years? We can't even get along, in the cradle of part of our civilizations. And it's been going on forever. So what makes us think that we deserve to be out there among the stars with these much more, developed and, that, for lack of a better word, more dangerous, entities, societies, or civilizations? I mean, what are we going to be for them? There's nothing we offer. There's nothing that they can't take from us. That's the big problem. So until we get someone that's going to say, okay, listen, we're going to take care of the earth. They got 1,000 years to get their stuff together. We're going to guide them, blah, blah, blah. Then we'd probably fine. But until that happens, I think we're going to be, we're going to be just kind of out there, basically waiting for someone to just come down and take over. And there'll be nothing we can do about it. And that's the real flip side. I think that's why you don't get all this information, is because when you become logical and you start looking at the history of our race, and you start looking at the history of our, ability and things we've done on planet Earth, what's to say theirs is going to be any different?
Christian, big thank you. We encourage everybody to go over to American Cryptid and Paranormal Society's website at cryptidguy.com. We call him Cryptid Guy around here, Christian McLeod. Thank you very much. As we say goodnight, Christian, and hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, Elgin, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio at Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Good job, Christoph.
Thank you, brother.
I appreciate you filling in.
No problem, man. Anytime you need me, you know that.
I know.
Hey, man, you did a good job on the show last week too. On that the New York thing. You sound like you sound good, man. I'm willing to bet you're getting a lot of extra viewers out of that.
It's fun.
No, that's cool, man. You should be proud of yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, man. One second. There we go. And there. For 456. Don't tell me I just did that. Oh my God. Don't tell me I just did that. I may have just fucked this whole thing.
Well, we can redo it if you need to.
No. Drafts and uploads. Hold on. Publish. Oh, good. It was there. All right. For the rest of you, I don't know why all of a sudden I went so dark. Probably because my chair was turned. For the rest of you, I want to say a big thank you to T-Bone, Claudette, Mikey, and Deborah Rooney for the super chats. Greatly appreciated. Christian, I got to say goodnight to you. My phone is going to be ringing here momentarily.
Dude, I'm going to be listening, so I'll talk to you later. God bless, man.
Say it with me, everybody. Merle. Merle. Oh, no, it's Science Bob tomorrow. Is it Science Bob tomorrow? Science Bob tomorrow. Nope, Merle tomorrow. No, Science Bob. Science Bob. Science Bob. I think I screwed up the show. I gotta get Science Bob ready for tomorrow. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night. You have a great one. And if I can ever figure out my computer here tonight, what a friggin' night. Oh my God. Okay. We're going to say goodnight. Later.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.